Welcome to the first deadline stream. Oh wait, no, it's just a stream. An FPL stream for the launch. It was released several hours ago though. It was probably around, what, 3.5 hours at this point, and I recorded a video in the morning, and of course the game released just a few hours later, but it's still relevant because I discuss all the key changes in Fantasy Premier League with AFCON transfers and all of this. I might go through the slides very briefly, but I've basically just done it in the morning and the video is there for you. So be sure to check it out if you haven't done so. And like this stream, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll be answering all your questions. And I'm being completely honest, since the game launched, I haven't checked any single price. So I'm going to be doing that, reacting live to those prices. And the only 6 that I'm well aware of are the ones that were announced and revealed by FPL on their Twitter page. And I also covered in that specific video I talked about the key changes to FPL this season. But welcome aboard. I'm glad to see a lot of familiar faces, including Easy, who was there during the Club World Cup fantasy content, and Kevy as well. So big up to yourselves and everyone else watching. So Kevy says, yes, was hoping to see this. How are we doing? Seems a little more difficult to draft at the moment with defenders and midfielder prices increases. Yeah, so I'm going to be reacting to that right now, and we can kind of dissect that comment. So the first one, of course, of this stream, and the first one of this new campaign. And it's not only FPL that I cover, it's also UCL Fantasy. But yeah, that's the sort of kind of vibe I'm getting, you know, through these different social media apps and stuff that I've seen there. But I haven't actually gone on the website and seen it. So I think it's probably best I do that very soon. Otherwise, I'm just going to be a blabbering idiot. Easy says, try to pick a team, but have some difficulties with the app. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, one thing I've noticed, because what I have done, and you can see there is a team on screen, but that's not actually what I've selected. I just did auto pick so I could get a slightly better ID, so to speak, and I'll be discussing how you can check your team ID very soon as well. It's very simple stuff. You go to your gaming history and you check it in the URL, but if anyone has any issues, I might go through it on screen with a bit more, I don't know, visual aid as well. But yeah, I have seen some issues, I think, with the app constantly logging me out, and also the website. So that's something I have noticed. But yeah, the most important thing, of course, is the prices, being able to build a team. But hopefully we don't have these problems, you know, later as we approach Game Week 1, because this could cause a lot of problems during deadline streams, for example. Yeah, so it might not be an internet issue, to be honest, because I also experienced similar problems as well. Welcome, Crown. Good to see you. How are we doing, guys? Well, I can only speak for myself. Pretty well, although this morning has been quite hectic, and then with the release of FPL, I was kind of expecting it to be this week, possibly even today, but the thing that does surprise me is that they only did 6 price reveals. Usually they do a bit more build-up, but because the game has been released later, so to speak, I think they just released the game entirely without too much build-up and hype. Thoughts on City and no Arsenal to start off the season? I think it's more valid now with the changes in terms of the chips. So the free hit, triple captain, bench boost and wildcard, we get 1 for each half of the season. So 1 for Game Weeks 1 to 19, and the second one will be for Game Weeks 20 to 38. So for example, in Game Week 2, I think a very popular strategy will be to free hit, get triple Arsenal against Leeds United, and that's where you don't need to go for any Arsenal player in Game Week 1. You can avoid them with their difficult start, but for the only good fixture on paper against Leeds, you can have a triple up because of the free hit. So I think that's definitely viable. With City, the problem there is the likes of Haaland, very expensive, and also rotation is a big issue. We saw that in the Club World Cup, which I also covered on this channel. And the likes of Aït-Nouri might be the most appealing defender, but he is 6 million, and for a similar price, you can go for Kerkez, maybe Frimpong, although I'm less keen on that one, which I'll discuss in future videos. And over the last couple of days, actually, I've not just been doing nothing, believe it or not. I've actually been preparing a lot of graphics, so things are pretty much set for future videos that might be done in a couple of weeks' time, or, you know, for the deadline stream in just under a month. But yeah, I have done a lot of research on even the newly promoted clubs and, you know, familiarizing myself with some really enticing options potentially, and that will be covered very soon. Easy says Salah, Palmer and Isak my top priorities. I think that will vary for different people. I think some would argue Erling Haaland, even Jared Bowen with the new reclassification as a forward. That's one thing I have seen. I think that could definitely be very interesting, but I think premiums are definitely where you want to settle on in terms of priorities, and that's a pretty good 3, to be honest, in that podium. Haaland backup transfer if Isak rumours to Saudi transfer go in. I don't think Isak will leave, to be honest. I think he'll stay at Newcastle for at least 1 more year, and then you could see him move to a European powerhouse so to speak. Why is no one talking about Caicedo? Well, that's a good question. If you check out my key changes video, which I released just a few hours ago, I discussed the likes of Caicedo and the defensive contributions, which will be so important. So they have taken elements from UCL Fantasy and the ball recoveries, and they've tweaked the bonus point system slightly, and that can make it very enticing. But before I go into even more questions, what I want to do is go through some more prices and actually, react to them live. So let's go to goalkeepers first. And yeah, one thing I've seen a lot of, complaints about is the user interface and the experience. I mean, look, I'll hold judgment for now, but the kind of constant logging out that I'm experiencing is a very weird bug. Hopefully they fix it very soon. With goalkeepers, Pickford is 5.5 million. That's something that was already announced by FPL, so I'm aware of that. So sales is 5 million. Let me actually sort this out by price. That will probably help a little bit. And actually on screen, you probably won't be able to see what I'm looking at because it's on the left-hand side. If you want me to do that, let me know, and I'll change the screen a little bit so you can see. So the most expensive goalkeepers, apart from Pickford, are Raya, Alisson, and Edison. So kind of what you would expect. I would have maybe argued that Edison should have been priced at 5 million, considering his FPL returns over the years, particularly in the last 2 seasons, which haven't been great. So Emi Martinez, who is suspended for Game Week 1, by the way, he got the red card against Man United. He's 5 million. So is Trafford, who is rumoured, or at least linked, with a move back to Man City. So that's definitely one to monitor. I would not be going for Trafford if he stays at Burnley, and he's priced at 5 million. Robert Sanchez, I think, could be a very enticing option, considering Chelsea's opening fixtures. Yeah, Dean Henderson makes sense, 5 million. Same with Leno, Ortega Moreno. Let me actually get it up on the other screen. And by the way, for some reason, on the browser I'm using, I don't see the purple that you lot are probably seeing, because I've got another tab up, different browser, and everything is in purple. And I did kind of talk about the possibility that FPL changed their color scheme again back to the original. So let's go back to goalkeepers here, and I'm going to have a look myself and just react to it live, then answer your questions, hopefully build a draft, a competent one, or at least have ideas for my first draft video, which will be out very soon, possibly even tomorrow. Who knows at this point, but things are definitely ramping up now this season. So, goalkeepers, Yeah, I need to get used to the UI. It won't take me long, but it is a little bit... Yeah, what's this about? Okay. After that, we're looking at Ortega Moreno, I said. Bayende is 5 million. The same with Onana. Pope, Sells, Vicario are all at 5 million. I thought Vicario could have been priced at 4.5 million, considering his kind of average returns last season, and Spurs really poor on the defensive front. Obviously, in the league, they completely sacrificed that in the end for the Europa League. So, yeah, I think 4.5 million might have been a better price for Vicario personally, but maybe you have a different opinion. Kepa Arrizabalaga at 4.5. Yeah, he's a backup now for Arsenal. Bizot for Aston Villa could be the main goalkeeper, or Bizot. Yeah, so he could be taking the place of Emi Martinez, who is rumoured with the likes of Man United. Then you've got the Burnley goalkeeper, the new signing, Weiss, at 4.5 million. He could be the number one now if Trafford were to leave. So Neto is back at Bournemouth. He's also priced at 4.5 million. Same with Petrovic, and the rest is what you would expect. Kelleher, Steele, Verbruggen, Jorgensen, Travers, Meslier, the new Liverpool goalkeeper, the Georgian, who was really impressive in the Euros. Patterson for Sunderland with interesting fixtures, so to speak. If you wanted to go for any newly promoted goalkeeper, Patterson is the most enticing, in my opinion, at least from a fixtures perspective. Areola and Johnston are also at 4.5 million. And let's see if I can get the other names up. Yeah, so we've still got quite a few to go through. I mean, Jose Sar's one. Then you've got a few kind of backup goalkeepers there, like Gauchi from Aston Villa, Hine and Setford for Arsenal. Apart from that, that's pretty much it. There might be one or two more I'm missing. Obviously, Crystal Palace recently signed Walter Benitez, the Argentine, from PSV Eindhoven. Could he be challenging Dean Henderson for that number one spot? That remains to be seen. I think that's unlikely, but we could see rotation between these different competitions, with Henderson being the number one in the league and Benitez in the Conference League, for example, because it looks like Crystal Palace will not participate in the Europa League, which is another story in of itself. But yeah, that's pretty much it. No 4 million goalkeepers that start, as far as I'm aware, and how things are looking like. But if anything does arise, it will be covered on this channel as usual. So that's the goalkeepers kind of, quickly analysed, and a few surprises here and there, you could say, but for the most part, it was what you would expect. I think also the Onana news of him missing the first 4 weeks of the season, something like that, that could also influence pricing for Bayende, for example, who's now at 5 million. Otherwise, he would have been a little bit cheaper. So with defenders here, and it's probably worth actually tweaking my draft a little bit, because I don't see myself going for Pickford and Alisson simultaneously, so that will change a little bit. Okay, so also getting used to this, I had to kind of quickly adjust the graphics to suit the new website design. I mean, let me know what you think. Do you actually like the new website design, or do you prefer the old one? Which I wouldn't be surprised if some of you felt that way, but I'm still going to hold out judgment for now. Then I'll become the biggest hater. I'm trusting Bowen to start off the season. I think that's fairly reasonable, to be honest. He's going to be a very solid pick at 8 million as a forward as well. But I need to check the other forward prices as well to begin with. Bowen and Joao Pedro is easy. Yeah, I think Joao Pedro with the fixtures is definitely a reasonable pick too. And also can play multiple positions, but ideally you'd want him to play as the solo striker there. Let's go, the game is back. We'll be joining your league, Dylan. Can't wait for the Premier League and FPL to return. Well, I have renewed the league from last season, so if you use the same account, this goes for anybody else watching, you will be automatically back in the league, but the code is different for some reason, and it's reflected in the graphics as well. So yeah, I'll also change it actually in the description. That's something I need to do, otherwise people are going to click on that one and maybe join a different league entirely. So I'm going to quickly modify that and make sure it's all up to date. So just give me a second and I will be with you shortly. So this is the league I'm talking about. So the code is WFF0U7. So I'm going to copy this auto join link and I'm going to put it in the description and also in the live chat. I might as well. So very easy for you to join. You click it and you're automatically part of my mini league. Thank you to those that are tuning in. It is greatly appreciated. I know the timing might be a little bit random, you could say, but people coming back from work and school and all of that. So welcome aboard. It's good to see you. I'm also going to do it for my other video as well. But yeah, I won't be long. So yeah, FPL Challenge as well. Once that's officially released, I can also put the code for that league as well. I do briefly cover FPL Challenge in my deadline stream. So yeah, a lot of different things are covered on this channel, trust me. In terms of fantasy games, even F1, I had a quick look at that, and Club World Cup Fantasy, Euros, World Cup, the Champions League, of course, is something I've been doing for multiple years, just like Fantasy Premier League. Okay. So that's been updated. So if you check the description now, it should all be up to date. Maybe you need to refresh the page or whatnot, but you know the drill. And now for this one. Yeah, I'm not sure why they changed the league code, though. I mean, it would make sense for it to be the same as last year, but whatever, I guess. And yeah, apart from that, I did one preliminary draft before the game was even released, and some of the positions were completely off, like Joao Pedro being a midfielder, and instead we saw Jared Bowen shift from a midfielder to a forward, so that's something that we have seen already. But yeah, the pricing maybe was on the cheaper side, using websites like fpl.team, but still, they did a great effort, and I think some of the predictions were spot on anyway, and it's a website I always recommend in terms of future planning, so be sure to do so in the upcoming season as well. But yeah, now all the links should be updated. I'll also be doing that in the Discord server and stuff like that, so people can easily join my mini league, and we can grow in numbers. We've got thousands of members from last season, and we're looking to get to even bigger ones this time round. So Gaming City Power says Salah's overrated in my opinion over Haaland, and Crown says Salah's never overrated, mate. Well, based on what he did last season, though, I think 14.5 million is definitely a fair pricing, but can he replicate that this season? I mean, he definitely can, but there is a difference between can and will he do it. Well, I think Salah will have a drop-off this season compared to the last campaign, but he'll still put in some big numbers. Over 20 goals I'm expecting, and probably over 10 assists as well. And midfielders also have that big advantage over forwards, let's not forget. So I think Salah could still offer better value than Haaland, even though he's 0.5 million more expensive. And Crown also says that, and I think Salah easily justifies that over Haaland. I think so too, especially because of the midfielder classification, and you could definitely say why is Salah a midfielder still, but Jeroboam's a forward? That's definitely another argument we could delve into as well. Is the pricing different because Haaland and Mbappe went for 11 or 12 million in Club World Cup? Yes, it's always been like that. FPL is always more expensive than the World Cup, Euros, and UCL Fantasy, which are cup competitions, and they also have cheaper pricing, so to speak. So yeah, the answer to your question is FPL is always priced differently, and it tends to be more expensive, actually. What an intro. Yes, I was kind of used to the deadline streams from Club World Cup Fantasy, so even though you could argue that removes the rust a little bit, maybe not so much with that opening segment, but let's forget that ever happened, yeah? Welcome, Fenerbahce, also a new member and a new viewer, I believe, from Club World Cup Fantasy. Good to see you. The GOAT says, hello, Dylan. Who would you go for? Watkins, Hudson-Odoi, and Kudus, or Palmer, Beto, and Adingra? At face value, I would lean towards the Watkins, Hudson-Odoi, and Kudus route. That is definitely debatable, though. I'm just not too keen on Beto. The fixtures aren't too bad for Everton, but that's the main pick. If you could maybe improve that or go to a different striker, then I'd be 100% recommending the Palmer one, because just by himself, he could outscore the other three that you're talking about. But yeah, I do like the look of Kudus at Spurs. I think he'll have a much better season this time round. I think Watkins will be fairly underrated if he stays at Aston Villa. And Hudson-Odoi might not be the greatest, to be honest, but as a budget pick can still offer reasonable value. Good to see you as well, Reese, and big love to the GOAT as well. Scout says Haaland should have been 12 million at most. I disagree, to be honest. I think 13 to 13.5 million might have been a little bit better. He scored 181 points last season. I mean, if I did get that stat wrong, I'll definitely talk about it in future videos of the graphics, because that's all set up now. But yeah, I get where you're coming from, but let's not forget that he had a lot of injury problems last season, and that's the main reason why he didn't reach 200 plus points. He does have a massive handicap, which I mentioned a few minutes ago about being a forward. Ultimately, midfielders have a massive advantage with the extra point for scoring a goal. They are favoured in the BPS, the bonus point system, and they also get clean sheet points too. FPL Bix says, buzzing to be back. Bench boost is locked in. Locked in already, I get that. I think if there's any chip that's close to being locked in for me, it's the free hit in Game Week 2, and that's where I can go triple Arsenal and go for something a little bit, well, not different, to be honest. Everyone's going to be doing it probably, but it looks like a very sound strategy. Yeah, we are so back. I've even seen FPL tweet that. Calm down. Fix your UI first, and also, you know, the constant logging in and out, and then we can say we're back. Mbumo Cunha traps at United now they're not on pens. I wouldn't call them traps, and let's not forget as well, and by this stage, I don't know if you think I've got Alzheimer's or something, I keep saying that, but Bruno Fernandes does share penalties. He's done that before with Marcus Rashford, for example, and several players at Man United. So I could see Mbumo taking some penalties. Mateus Cunha will probably be third in command. But yeah, I think Mbumo might actually have a chance of being the main penalty taker at some stage. But for now, it should be Bruno Fernandes. That definitely reduces their appeal. But I still think from open play, they can produce plenty of goals and assists. The main problem for United, though, is the striker. They need to get a more prolific striker, someone who can link up the play as well. I don't think Højlund is quite good enough right now. So, yeah, once they get that striker in, you could definitely argue the goals are taken away by Mbumo and Cunha, but I also think it will mean United create more chances, they'll score more goals, and be a better attacking unit and team overall. But I still think Mbumo and Cunha are reasonable options at 8 million, I believe they are. I'm going to quickly check that and make sure, because like I said, these are my first reactions to the prices. Strengths and weaknesses of the chips and reveal. So I did discuss the chips in my video earlier, but not necessarily the pros and cons, to be honest. So it definitely allows you to be aggressive, I think. That's one of the pros about having 2 of every chip. Having said that, I think this season with the AFCON transfers, having basically 5 transfers no matter where you are, if you've used all 5 of them, if you got 4, you know, in the bank and stuff like that, to have 5 free transfers in Game Week 16, I think all of this is pushing towards fewer hits this season, which is something I'm maybe a little bit against, to be honest. I probably need more time to reflect on it, but there are definitely good things about it and also some bad things that are attached to these changes to FPL this season. But I do think hits will be less common this time round. Any on FPL that should add... yeah, sorry, I didn't understand that. Apologies, maybe I'm just... I don't know. Oisin says, hi Dylan, FPL is live. What do you think of Bowen in the new forward position and prices as an option? Yeah, so Bowen, 8 million forward, I think is still solid. I do prefer him as a midfielder, but it's a bit like Joao Pedro, which I discussed in my preliminary draft podcast. Irrespective of the final position, I'm still quite keen on the player. And the same goes for Jared Bowen, who has great long-term fixtures. Whether you look at West Ham over the first 6, 8, or 12, I think West Ham are always ranked highly in the FDR. That's something I talked about a lot in my recent videos. And Jared Bowen is my favourite Hammers option by some distance. So I'm still quite keen on him. And you might see him now in this sort of building blocks for the draft very soon. Let's Talk Vigneault says, hi Dylan, hope you're doing well. Gonna need a few cheap enablers this season. Yeah, I think so too. It looks like that's the vibe we're getting from the pricing. I will be going through that now. Obviously, I was showing my league for quite a while there, so apologies. This is the auto pick team that I've gone for. Is there anyone that I'd consider for my normal team? Maybe Cucurella. 8 Nuri isn't too far off, I guess. I think Bowen and Vissa would be solid shouts, to be fair. I do like them. Maddison as a short-term punt isn't too shabby, but injury-prone, and I think the minutes could be a problem. Pedro Neto's okay. I think Pickford is always up there with the best goalkeepers in the game, hence the price increase. So I have reacted to the goalkeeper prices already, but I will be going to the defenders very soon and checking that out. So Joao Pedro is 7.5 million, and he's a forward. Okay, so FPL.team were only 0.5 million off in their prediction there. Yeah, Saliba, I think any Arsenal defender is still reasonable, despite their tough fixtures. Trossard is a no-go. He's also linked with a move away, and Arsenal might be looking to offload him and Martinelli to get the likes of Eze, Xavi Simons, and Rodrigo, who I don't think will go to Arsenal, to be honest. But yeah, Rashford definitely no-go. He's going to Barcelona anyway. So it's time to probably make some tweaks, and that's where I'll learn some of the pricing naturally. So in goal, the top considerations for me would still be Raya, but more so Pickford, Robert Sanchez, Kelleher. 4.5 million goalkeepers are definitely appealing at the moment. I'm going to pick Robert Sanchez for now, and then reassess that. As a backup, I might go just for a cheap 4 million goalkeeper, so it doesn't really matter who that's going to be. So let's have a quick look. Of course we have a look. Hein, no, I'm not going to go for an Arsenal player there, just in case. Valdi Marson. I mean, that's something I talked about in my preliminary draft, having him and Kelleher. That could still be a thing, but for now, I'm going to go for Robert Sanchez and Valdi Marson here. So I'm going to get rid of Saliba. Yeah, Cucurella, Robertson, Van Dijk, 8 Nuri. So there's going to be some changes in this defensive line. So let's check the prices here. So yeah, Gabriel, Saliba, Cucurella, Frimpong, Kerkez, Robertson, Van Dijk, 8 Nuri, and Gvardiol, all 6 million. They are the most expensive defenders in the game. So it's the first time in a while that we haven't had someone priced at 6.5 or more, like Trent Alexander-Arnold. So that changes things a little bit. And to be honest, with the defensive contributions this season, I think centre-backs could be more viable than an attacking fullback. So don't be surprised if Van Dijk outscores Kerkez and Frimpong in this upcoming campaign. So Van Dijk is actually someone I'm looking at, to be fair. That's something that will definitely spring to mind. Cucurella, still on my thoughts. Same with Colwill. I think he's going to be priced at 5 million then based on this. Reece James is 5.5. Munoz is 5.5. Yeah, Branthwaite. All these Everton defenders are priced quite high now, which is interesting, but it does make sense. If you saw the graphics I talked about in the key changes video, there's a good reason for that. So yeah, even Newcastle defenders, 5.5 million. Forest defenders, Murillo, predicted to be 4.5 million. He's 5.5. And to be honest, I think it's probably fair pricing based on the new system this season. Lewis Potter, 5 million. Okay, so definitely it's going to be more difficult. Yeah, I can see already from the defenders only. I haven't even checked the midfielders or forwards yet properly. Yeah, this is a little bit different, you could say. All right, so let's play around with it. I mean, ultimately, in the first draft, I'll put more thought into it and then, you know, kind of discuss all of my picks individually and the reasons why. This will just kind of be like a early reaction and going for players that I like the look of and this kind of structure I'm aiming for a Game Week 1 and beyond. So Sanchez and Valdi Marson, that will probably stick for now. In the defensive line, I'm going to put Kerkez in there, even though Liverpool have tough fixtures for the first 3 game weeks. So that's something I'm still doing. And let me change this, by the way. Apologies, I was on a different screen. This should be better now. I need to get used to the website, I'm not going to lie. But Kirkes in. Let's get rid of Maddison, Rashford. I'm not going to go for them, I think. Even the Arsenal midfielders. Bowen, though, I'll keep. Even Joao Pedro. I'm quite keen on him. Gyökeres hasn't been added to the game because he's not an Arsenal player yet, so we still have to wait for that one. I think he's going to come in at 9.5 to 10 million, to be honest, based on the pricing that we're seeing now. But, yeah, I'm going to go for some cheaper options, ideally, in this defensive line. So, you know what? I'm going to go for Colwill. Get rid of Sanchez, and I might just go for Pickford. Set and forget goalkeeper. Even though he has this kind of tendency to start the season poorly, people sell him in Game Week 8 or on the wildcard, and then he just goes on an absolute mad one. That's typical Pickford for you. So let's put Pickford in here. I could even go for the backup Everton goalkeeper, just to have that sort of option, if he's 4 million, that is. I need to double check that. So yeah, they do have this kind of new toggle system for transfers and stuff like that. Not sure what I think of that. Yeah, Travers would be the backup goalkeeper. 4.5, it's not really worth it. No, it's not. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of that. All players. Let's put Valdemars and then just stick with him. Okay, so Kirkes and Colwill. We're making some progress. This is going to take a little bit of a while. I think Wirtz in the midfield, 8.5 million is way too cheap. So I think that will be very template. I'd be surprised if he didn't have 40% ownership or more. It could even be 50, 60. I think he's too cheap, almost. So he's in. Brian Mbeumo is still a consideration for me, but United have tough fixtures, and of course Kevin raised the point about the penalties potentially being removed from them, with Bruno Fernandes being the main taker. I think Palmer is still a shout for me. So maybe no Salah at the moment, but that could well change by tomorrow. Oh yeah, guys and girls, I've got Salah in my first draft. But I'm just saying, at the moment, with this sort of building blocks I'm doing, yeah, Salah will be too expensive. Let's go into some more questions first to give me some time to think about this because, yeah, Bruno Fernandes, 9 million. Saka at 10 is what we expected. Palmer's 10.5. Marmoush obviously reclassified. He's 8.5 million as a midfielder. Odegaard, I think, should have been priced a little bit lower. 8 million based on what he did last season. Yeah, I think that's a bit too high, especially when he's sharing the same price as Mbeumo. Foden is at 8 million. The minutes, of course, will be a big problem. My question, guys, is whom should I captain in Game Week 1? I know when you lose in the captaincy, you lose the championship. Well, depends on what you mean by championship. In terms of winning the whole thing, you need to get the captaincy spot on. Winning some competitive mini-leagues as well. Captaincy can be one of the fine margins, which means you win it or finish second or something like that. But look, there's no guarantee to success. I think for Game Week 1 is quite open. Jared Bowen would be a nice shout against Sunderland, but you're probably looking at Salah. His Game Week 1 record is phenomenal. I talked about this before. 7 double-digit hauls in the opening game weeks of a Premier League season. I think he's got 10 goals now, 8 assists. I need to double-check the stats, but they're ridiculous. I think Salah against Bournemouth, who have no Dean Howson, off to Real Madrid. Obviously, they lost a few key players in that defensive line. Kepa Arrizabalaga, that loan has terminated. Kirkes to Liverpool. I think they are there for the taking, and Liverpool could win by 3 or 4. What's the likelihood of Vuskovic starting for Spurs? Got an idea of a potential bench boost Game Week 1? I'm not so sure yet, and Thomas Frank is a new manager at Tottenham Hotspur, so his ideas will be vastly different to Ange Postecoglou. I think with Spurs, I have done predicted lineups for every team, but they're very rough, and we still have more transfers to take place. So at the moment, I'd say he'd be a bench player, and he'd be eased in, and we could see him get a lot of minutes in the Cups. That would be my first take on it, but maybe I'm completely wrong about that. Edison likely to go Galatasaray. Ortega should be number 1. Yeah, a few days ago, though, Edison confirmed he's staying at Man City, but there have been rumours for quite a while now that Edison will leave the club, and this could finally be the summer. If that's the case, then Ortega could be decent, but I'm still quite appealed by Sanchez instead. I think Chelsea will keep more clean sheets than City at the moment. Thomas says, hi Dylan, in my opinion, James is better, Cucurella, and cheaper. You might be right about that. The problem with James, though, is the injuries. I mean, people kept saying to me, why do you not have James in your Club World Cup fantasy team? And then literally hours later, in the lineup against Palmeiras, he's dropped out in the build-up. He gets an injury in the warm-up, basically. So you can't trust Reece James to stay fit. I think he's a trap based on that. Until he can get over those injury problems, and it's going to be very tough, I think. Yeah, I'm probably just going to watch from afar, and if he starts to, play over a month or two consistently, getting 60-plus minutes and staying fit, then I'd be interested. But until that happens, I just can't really recommend such an injury-prone player. You want with no Salah and or Wirtz? It's an auto-pick team, mate. I'm not going to pick Trossard and Martinelli in my squad and Van Dijk and Kirkes. So, yeah, hopefully you know that by now. ATL's AM says, I think something happened, can get the ID. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'll double check. But for those that are unaware, go to your Game Week history on the website and you can see your team ID in the URL. I think mine is in the top 10k, which is definitely an improvement from the last couple of seasons. Anish says, wouldn't Kirkes not play the first game Bournemouth? No, that only happens with loan signings. Kirkes is a permanent transfer, so he will play in Game Week 1 against Bournemouth. If it was a loan, different story, and you would be completely right to ask that. But yeah, Kirkes is absolutely fine unless something happens with injury or something like that. Season will be interesting, yes, and hopefully much better than the last campaign. That's true, Goldhead. The thing is, though, I need to check Einer's defensive contributions, actually. So that might be worth having a look. But I think Murillo and Milenkovic will get a lot more defensive contribution points, which is why they're priced at 0.5 million higher. Welcome, Beardy. Good to see you as well. Even says, I want to do Salah and Wirtz, but I can't afford Mbeumo. What should I do? Well, Mbeumo does face Arsenal in Game Week 1, and he might not be on penalties. United have terrible opening fixtures. I have to say, in my opinion, Arsenal and Man United have the worst fixtures of any club for the opening 6 game weeks. So you could downgrade Mbeumo to Kudus, for example, or a cheaper midfielder, and that's how you can buy Salah and Wirtz simultaneously. Either Ortega or Trafford come great backup, since Ederson will likely go to Galatasaray. Yeah, I could see that happening. I also saw links by Portuguese outlets to Diogo Costa. I'm not so sure how reliable that is, but yeah, I think Trafford, I could see that move happening. I just think goalkeepers could definitely rotate too often. Pope injury, no doubt, says Goldhead. I've gone Sanchez Dubravka, nice and easy. Yeah, that could be fairly reasonable, actually. And Nick Pope had a bit of a stinker the other day against Celtic. I saw a mistake there, which resulted in one of their goals. 5.5 million Reinders is my favourite cheap mid this year. He was amazing in Serie A, both attacking and defensively. Hopefully Pep doesn't limit his abilities. So yeah, I do have some graphics actually for most of these players, but the prices and ownership figures will need to be updated. I'm going to see if I can bring some of them up on screen. But yeah, that might be a bit of an ask. If not, I'll save it for those videos where I'll talk about best summer signings, maybe best players in each position and stuff like that, budget picks, you name it. But Reinders, let me actually check his stats because I've got them all listed in my document. So just give me a second and I will have a look. So I think... Oh yes, in the pre-season one. Oh crap. Okay, so yeah, I don't have it on this computer, I've got it on the other one, so I'm going to quickly look now. So let's type in Reinders, I'll find him. So yeah, he scored 10 goals in Serie A last season, 5 assists. In the Champions League, he got 3 goals. And in all competitions, he got 20 goals and assists combined. That's very impressive. So yeah, 5.5 million is a good price for him. And I could also see him getting some defensive contribution points. So yeah, I think Reinders, Caicedo as well, these players could be very reasonable, but Reinders has far more attacking threat than the Ecuadorian. Okay, so I'm going to try to at least make a bit of progress here with this sort of first draft. But welcome Awali and everyone else. Yeah, Gyökeres is not going to be in the list because he's not an Arsenal player yet. That makes sense. Should Chris Wood really be overlooked? Well, no, I don't like saying a player should be overlooked or not, but I think he will have a massive dip this season. I also think Forest will struggle without Elanga, potentially Gibbs White if he leaves. That would mean a massive blow for Chris Wood and the creativity, because he does thrive on service and he was prolific last season, but you take away Elanga and Gibbs White, I think that changes massively. And even with those players, I would have expected a bit of a drop-off regardless. I think Diallo could play as a wing-back more often than not, and yeah, in those attacking areas, those attacking positions for United, it will be in Mbumo, Cunha, and Højlund at the moment. So Diallo could still do well at right wing back, but I would probably say no. Kevy says old website design wasn't super great, but it feels worse now. I agree. That's the way I'm feeling right now, but I'm still open. So I could change my mind eventually, but yeah, it will take some getting used to, I think. But for some reason, mine is white. So it only works with purple and stuff like that in other browsers. Don't know why that is, but there you go. Some coding issues. Let me actually check Dubravka. So he's 4 million. Yeah, that's a decent shout there by Goldhead. I mean, Newcastle's opening fixtures are quite poor, but I'll just put him in there for now. Why not? Okay, so looking at the other players, I might go for Mbumo, Kudus, these sorts of picks. But I need to check this list, and unfortunately I need to keep scrolling down for this, so I have to keep going away from my team. Yeah. Okay, so I'm still open to getting Vissa. I'm going to add him for now. So this front line means no Erling Haaland, no Isak, no premiums, but 3 solid mid-price forwards in Vissa, Joao Pedro, and Bowen. I quite like the look of that, actually, and it might be very useful in terms of getting my midfielder targets as well. So Marmoush is actually consideration. I think he could be rotated quite often, but yeah, Marmoush is crossing my mind. I might just put him in there for the time being. Okay, so defensively, Kirkes, Colwill. Then it gets really tough. I'm not going to lie. It gets really tough with the defense. I think that's the main issue I'm having right now with this position. I don't see myself going for another premium. Maybe an Arsenal one and just going through the tough fixtures. I mean, last season we saw how they did in the opening 4 or 5. They kept a lot of clean sheets there. I'll put Gabriel in there for now. But yeah, after that, just cheaper options in this position. So yeah, defensively, I would like a Forest one. And I think Aina might be a decent pick. Same with Nico Williams. I'll put Aina. Yeah, it's still not looking great at the moment because I do fear I'm going to struggle for funds. 18 million for 2 midfielders and a defender. Yeah, we'll see about that. Crystal Palace. Not so sure about that. I'm literally going through the list, checking it by price order. The Goalkeeper for Brighton, 4.5 million. Yeah, I'm going to say Konsa, which is something I talked about in my preliminary draft. I'm quite keen on a Villa defender, which is something I rarely do. If you saw my videos last season, I kept saying, don't go for a Villa defender. I do feel a little bit differently based on how they ended the last season, with Gemic Ferrier excluded, and also their opening fixtures this time around. So 2 midfielders now, 13.5 million. Can we get to a decent level of options here? We'll find out. So I'm just going to put Kudus in there. Yeah, I guess. And then 7 million. I mean, it's not looking too shabby, but yeah, some tinkering definitely needs to be made. 7.5 bloody million. No, 7 million. I wish I had 7.5. Oh my god, the website's freezing. Or is that me? Maybe it's me. My brain is freezing. So at 7 million and below, Madueke, come on. I probably won't go for him yet. Semenyo. Yeah, I'm still considering him. Rogers as well. Okay, so this is my kind of rough... let's just do something. It's alright, I guess. Nothing left over in the bank. This would mean triple Chelsea, double Liverpool, double Villa, 1 West Ham, 1 Arsenal, 1 Brentford, 1 Spurs, 1 Man City, technically 1 Newcastle on my bench. I mean, it's not bad. 1 Forest, if I didn't say them. Obviously with Aina. So yeah, now I'll leave that sizzling a little bit in the frying pan. Let's see if it burns. Just logged in and liking the new UI. Wow, there we go. We've got a different opinion there. Yeah, I'm not so sure at the moment, but maybe I just need to get used to it. There is also FPL Challenge and Draft. FPL Draft, same fantasy. Yeah, but has it been released yet? Because when I checked earlier, I think FPL Challenge was still under maintenance. I'll have a quick look now and report back to you on that, but you probably know anyway. So let's see if I can get that up. Yeah, it keeps logging me out for some reason when I open a new tab. That's something they need to fix ASAP. Surely they'll get enough feedback to be aware of the problem. Where is it? Yeah, FPL Challenge. Yeah, it's just getting ready for the new season, so they're still doing updates on that game. But yeah, I've been asked questions about FPL Draft. I've never played it, so I'm not the best person to ask about that. But maybe this season I'll have a look. I know some friends who have some mini leagues and stuff. That should be a little bit of fun, so maybe I'll, you know, try it out that way. Thank you, Mr. Iceman. Great to see you again, Dylan. First draft done. Jose Sa, Dubravka, Van Dijk, Aina, Porro, Konsa, Aiden Heaven, Palmer, Bruno, Indai, Rutter, Wirtz, Haaland, Ivanilson, Amdouni. Very happy, not going to lie. Dare I say locked? I wouldn't say locked because there's still 3 weeks until the deadline and a lot can change by then, but you could definitely be quite comfortable with that draft for the next week or two. And it's completely different to what I've gone for, I think. We have a few similarities like Aina and Dubravka, but apart from that, I mean, Palmer, Wirtz, and the rest is quite different, actually, which is good to see. Would you use United's performance in their USA preseason tour to decide on using some of their players? I think preseason will be important to some extent, and I will be checking performances, seeing who is getting the goals and the assists, and if United are gelling as a team. A few years ago with Arsenal, just after they finished 5th and narrowly missed out on a Champions League spot, they had an incredible pre-season. They beat Chelsea 4-0 and they looked like a different team. And I wasn't saying I thought they'd challenge for the league, you know, for that season, but something was a little bit different. And you could tell that sort of progression and growth by the pre-season performances and results. So sometimes it can give you that sort of barometer, but I would be slightly careful about that because it doesn't always reflect, and you can have a great pre-season and then start absolutely terribly in the Premier League. It's not a guarantee for success or for progression and development, but I think it's definitely worth watching how all these teams do. And throughout my content, my aim will be to relay this information and talk about the most informed players and then identifying those best value picks. One for All says, extremely difficult to include Salah, Haaland and Palmer in the same team now. Yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, we got similar discussions last season. I think it was still quite difficult to have Salah and Haaland and a balanced team overall. So not much has changed in my opinion from that perspective. But yeah, I can't judge too much yet, but it does seem there is a bit of variation from the teams I've seen in the live chat. The 2 best forwards to get, I mean, if money was no issue, I'd say Haaland and Bowen. But you've also got Joao Pedro, Wissa, Alexander Isak. If Arsenal finally sign in Viktor Gyökeres, they would be my favourites. Right now, though, I'd say Haaland and Bowen, even though, as you can see, no Erling Haaland in my team. Still early, but it's not easy to make a compelling 11, let alone 15 at the moment, but I welcome the challenge. Yeah, I feel the same way, to be honest, and I think what I've come up with is decent, but there's definitely some ways to improve it, and in my first draft video and podcast, I'm probably going to see a few changes, actually, so yeah, I'm quite open-minded about the new prices and season. Kirkes versus Frimpong, Spurs 4.5 million forward. I think Kirkes will be a better option. In terms of defensive contributions, I think he'll get more points for that. And also, from an attacking perspective, I think Frimpong might do better when they both start simultaneously. But when you look at minutes, I do feel that Kirkes is less at risk of being displaced by Robertson or Tsimikas, depending on who stays and goes for Liverpool. I think Frimpong could be benched at times for Bradley, at least at the start. That's the way I feel. And naturally, Frimpong is a right wing back in a back three system, not a right back, of course, in this back line of 4 defenders. How do you expect them to price Gyökeres? As I said a few minutes ago, probably 9.5 to 10 million. I'm going to say 9.5. What's your thoughts? Yeah, on Frimpong Kirkes. So yeah, that's obviously you put in a super chat. So thank you very much. Hopefully you're happy with the answer. Maybe you feel differently, and that's what it's all about, different opinions and discussions. Yeah, exactly, Crown. And I did say that before a few times, but thank you for reminding people. Vuskovic from Spurs realistically should be a 4 million defender of choice given the lack of 4 million options. I just don't see that happening, to be honest. And you see how Vicario was priced at 5 million. Yeah, it's just, I just don't see it. And Romero, it looks like he's going to stay at the club, and providing that him and Van der Ven stay fit, it might take him a while to break into that Tottenham starting 11. Kelleher is still a consideration for me at 4.5 million, but I like the look of these 5 million options like Robert Sanchez, and of course I've got Pickford at the moment in this sort of draft. But yeah, Kelleher, if you're looking for that cheaper option, he's someone I discussed in my preliminary draft from a few days ago. Does FPL work on Safari for anyone? It works on Chrome. Yeah, it does work on Chrome, and I did see the purple layout and stuff, and it looks decent, I guess, but I don't like the fact that I have to keep scrolling to check other players and stuff in the list. Before, you didn't really need to do that. You just have a scroll button or scroll bar. I prefer that, but that's just a minor nitpick, and it's also to do with content. With the new defensive point changes, does that mean Virgil will get more points than Kirkes? I think so, actually. It's not a guarantee, and let's see who stays fit and stuff like that, but Van Dijk typically is a 35 to 38 game season man. He's playing every single minute. He can get a few goals, and he gets so many blocks. Goal line clearances, is a big factor now. There's a massive change now in the BPS system, or in the bonus point system. And before, you would get free BPS for a goal line clearance. Now it's 9, triple the amount. So, yeah, I think Van Dijk will get more points, actually. So that's why maybe instead of Kirkes, I'll go for Van Dijk. It's something I'm considering. So Kirkes has 21.8% ownership. What about Virgil van Dijk? Let's check. What? I put all players, you twat. Okay, I didn't save. Van Dijk. Yeah, he's a bit lower owned. Yeah, not bad. Okay. Gonna put Virgil van Dijk for now. But yeah, I do feel that way. Kirkes is more exciting because of the attacking play threat, especially with the assist, but I think Van Dijk with the goals and also the defensive contributions could be very impressive, actually. So for those who haven't done so already, like this stream, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff, and check all the links in the description. That includes an updated FPL link for my mini league, so you can join. The code is also on screen. It's a very weird one, WFF0U7. So for some reason it's changed, but if you were in my mini league last season, just use the same account and you're automatically in the same league. Yeah, Lewis Hall, I think Newcastle's fixtures are quite tough. And in terms of defensive contributions, he's not going to be the best for that. So from Newcastle, you're looking at Cher and Dan Burn for that particular metric. But of course, what Hall offers is the assist threat, a bit like Milos Kerkez as well. But I'm going to be honest, I would rather go for the Everton defenders now, like Tarkovsky and Branthwaite. And you've also got Virgil van Dijk at 0.5 million more. I'd recommend that sort of pick instead. I also think Saka. I saw someone mention Saka. I also think Gabriel could be really good for defensive contributions. He wasn't really in the upper echelons because he missed the last 2 months due to injury, but definitely watch out for Gabriel. On top of the goals from set pieces, I think he can get plenty of DC points. No, not Detective Comics, defensive contribution points. Saka is always consistent when fit. I think he's a must-have for me. He's one of the best options in the midfield for sure, and he was incredible in the first half of last season until that injury against Crystal Palace. I don't think he's a must-have, but still can tick along nicely, despite Arsenal's opening fixtures, which are really tough. Goldhead says it's his debut season, so I can see them putting Gyökeres at 7.5, 8.5 range. Look, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with 9 million because it's a new league and stuff, but I think 7.5 is way too cheap. For a striker who scored 97 goals in 102 games, yes, it's the Portuguese league, but it's still the 6th or 7th best league in the world. So yeah, I think Gyökeres should be priced at minimum 9. That's the way I look at it. 8.5 isn't too bad, but I think if it's any cheaper, he'll become template very soon. What's the top 1% league and top 10% leagues? Yeah, they're based on last season's rank, exactly that. Now, it might seem very elite and stuff like that, but top 10%, I mean, yeah, if you're in the top million or stuff like that, you're going to be in that sort of league anyway. Top 100k for the top 1%, I mean, it's difficult to get there, but yeah, that is how it works. It's based on last season. Yeah, I'm not so sure, Easy. 1.5 million rank because there were more than 10 million FPL managers or accounts last season, so you might be able to make the top 10% league, I think. I'll make my team around the 13th of August due to preseason and transfers. That's fine, Manish. I mean, because I make content, I'm going to make several drafts and stuff like that and tinker so people can see my thought process and, you know, we can discuss ideas. Otherwise, I'd be in the same boat as you. Maybe not 13th of August, maybe a bit earlier, but I'd leave it for a couple of weeks. And when I'm back from my holiday, which is actually on that day, yeah, I'd be looking at that sort of thing. I reckon Kudus is going to be great value this season. It's possible. I kind of hope he isn't, even though he's in this building blocks draft, so to speak. Yeah, Reinders is ridiculously cheap, and people say Wirtz was on the price. I think both of them are, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, Reinders, really, really low priced. I haven't even seen Declan Rice and Caicedo, but I'm assuming they're around 6-7 million. No, not 7. Yeah, Rice 6.5. Yeah, Caicedo's 5.5. That's pretty good, actually. I mean, 98 points last season, meh. Add the defensive contribution points and he gets like 140. So that's a massive difference. I think Caicedo will offer good value too. The problem is Rodri might restrict his minutes. I think they'll play together, to be honest. And I do think if Rodri plays, that will only help Man City. And I think Reinders, yeah, maybe he gets fewer starts. You're right about that. But I still think he gets 30 plus in the Premier League. Enzo, a decent option. Very attacking second half of last season. And Club World Cup looked okay. Bit quieter with Neto getting more opportunities. Yeah, but Enzo still was quite consistent. 6.5 million, decent price tag. And I'm much more keen on him now than I was in the last campaign. When he had that purple patch, I was still not buying it. I'm feeling a bit differently now. Yeah, I think so as well, Jojo. Because at the moment, it'd be Reinders, Bernardo Silva and Gundogan. We saw that in the Club World Cup when Rodri wasn't fully fit to start. I think if Man City have everyone available, it'd be Rodri, Reinders, and then you're looking at one of Bernardo or Gundogan. Maybe they go really offensive with Cherki and Foden, but yeah, I think Reinders and Rodri, that's a really strong midfield. Ndai is only 6.5 million, got him in my team. Yeah, I'm going to look at that as well. It's the settings, dark light mode. Okay, I might have a look at that. Where do I find the dark setting mode? And I don't know why mine's light. I've never put light in my life. I always put dark. Just saying. I might quickly have a look and see where I can get this saying. Look, once again, you see this? It keeps logging me out. It's really annoying. But if you haven't already, you know the drill. Just like, subscribe whilst I log in and make sure that you don't, you know, steal my details and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, let's go back to my social media links. Dylan RCM, FPL Dylan. That's how you can find me. All the links can be found in the description. Let's go back now to the website and see if I can find this setting that has been talked about. But at the moment, I don't see it. Is there just a button or something that will make it very simple? I'm having a look, but I don't see it. Is it in like... Would it be in user profile, would it? Surely not. So yeah, if anyone knows how to get it, let me know. What I'm going to show you now, though, actually, and I might actually use this. I'll stop saying actually. Love actually, bloody actually, piss off actually. Okay, so using this, let's go to the Game Week transfer section. So click on this. I'm going to highlight it here. No, idiot. Click on transfer history. So let's highlight that properly. And then it will say fantasy.premierleague.com/entry and then / and it will put your team ID. So that's the way you can get your team ID for those that are wondering. And as you can see, no transfers have been made yet for this team, which is probably a good thing. It's only getting it worse from this point onwards. But yeah, until I can find that setting, I'll leave it for now. And this is basically a very rough draft. That's what I'm going to call it. It's not, I mean, you could just say first draft, whatever, but yeah, there's definitely some tinkering to be done. And still some good things, though, I think. Some positives to take. Kudus and Die thoughts. I kind of just went for Kudus. Really good Gimmick 1 fixture. The problem with Spurs facing Burnley, though, is that it takes place 3 days after the UEFA Super Cup final. And I think that will be the main priority for Tottenham Hotspur. Ndai will be the interesting pick since he is reclassified from a striker to a midfielder. I agree. All the main positional changes were discussed in my key changes video from earlier today. So yeah, Dry Hill, I just covered that. I know you said this earlier, but hopefully you're still here and saw my explanation, as bad as it was. 6.5 million bracket, Cherki, Kudus, Enzo, Ndai, Ahmad. In isolation, I'd maybe lean towards Enzo Fernandez, but I've got Palmer already, and Joao Pedro and Colwill. But yeah, if I decided to go without Palmer, maybe go for a premium midfielder or premium striker instead, maybe Salah, then I would consider Enzo Fernandez for that 6.5 million midfielder slot. But the good thing about FPL this season, it looks like, is that we're getting more variation. You can even pick defensive midfielders like Caicedo, and they can do a really good job. Yeah, Kluivert is still decent. Semenyo as well. So Kluivert 7 million, right? Yeah, that's to be expected considering what Rodgers and Semenyo were priced at. Yeah, so Matheus Nunes, he's a defender now. Not so sure about him. To be honest, I think Man City will rotate quite a lot. Rico Lewis could play there, even Akanji if he stays, although he's heavily linked with a move away. John Stones. I think City just rotate a lot in that defensive line. Even Gavardio in the Club World Cup was benched a few times. So, honestly, I'd rather avoid all of them. 8 Nuri is piquing my interest a little bit. And at 0.5 million more than Matheus Nunes, I'd rather go for him. I think Ruben Dias, I'm not going to say he's going to be an amazing option, but I think he'll be considerably better now with defensive contribution points being a factor. Be Honourable says, they move Bowen to attack, where he will receive 1 less point for a goal, no clean sheet points, fewer bonus points, and made him more expensive. I will pass for now. The fixtures are still great, but I get it. He's less appealing now, and I said that before, but I'm still kind of the opinion that irrespective of midfielder or forward, the same goes for Joao Pedro, I'm still keen on the player. And it's also a budget thing, because who else could I get at 8 million or below now, whilst maintaining Palmer, 2 premium defenders in Van Dijk and Gabriel, and having good options everywhere. Now, you can actually say, yeah, it's almost too much depth. That's the problem with this team. I mean, am I really going to bench all these players? It does seem like a little bit too much, but with this current setup, at 8 million or below, you're looking at Vissa, Joao Pedro, not that many others, maybe Solanke, Mateta. But yeah, I'm going to stick with Bone for now, but what I might do is go to a cheap option, either in the midfield or forward line. Because realistically, I have to bench one of Wirtz, Palmer, Marmoush, Kudus, Rodgers, Vissa, Joao Pedro, Bowen every week. Not to mention in my defensive line, they could all feasibly start at any given time. I actually don't really mind that defensive depth, but in the attack, I think that's probably a bit too much, actually. So that's something I need to think about. No Salah or Haaland. Like I said, it's literally a building blocks team, getting a feel for the pricing. I just reacted now. I went live. I only saw a few of them. So the 6 reveals from before, I think I saw Bowen as an 8 million forward and also Joao Pedro. The rest I was kind of oblivious to, and I've been reacting to it in this stream. Yeah, I mean, this could be a bench boost team, to be honest. So if I were to go this sort of route, that's right. That's the way to go. Bench boost game week 1, free hit game week 2, and then afterwards maybe start taking money away from that position. But I can always wildcard quite wildcard quite quickly. Juniper, though, says Arsenal are moving too slow on Gyökeres. Yes, I agree. Now, Sporting, it does seem like they're just really longing this out, but yeah, maybe Arsenal are just being Arsenal and not willing to pay the extra 2-3 million to get the player, which they should be doing. Yeah, so Sharda, still fairly appealing. Not my favourite option, but he got 11 goals last season. That includes a few hat-tricks, I think, actually. Some massive returns against the likes of Leicester. So he can be a flat-track bully. Without Mbeumo, of course, that'll be a massive impact. And Brentford are missing multiple players and their manager, of course. But I think Sharda can still get 10-plus goals and 140-plus points. So still a decent choice. I think 1.5 million just misses out on the top 10%. Yeah, I think so as well. I'm not entirely sure how many managers there were last season, so I need to double check it. I think it was 10, 11 million. You could get Declan Rice for the free kicks and defensive contribution points. I could, but Arsenal's fixtures aren't great, and I think having Gabriel is already enough coverage for me. I also think Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez, they'd be very tempting, albeit I've got triple Chelsea already. But there's Ndai as well. I could get Semenyo for 0.5 million more. You've got Rodgers, of course, who is in my team at the moment. Kirk has nailed. Also, is he attacking? Okay, so I think Kerkez will start most games at left back this season, and a talking point from before is Kerkez versus Frimpong. I think Frimpong is more at risk of being displaced by Bradley than Kerkez is by Robertson or Tsimikas. Having said that, he's not going to start every single game. I think he will rotate, especially when Liverpool have a crucial cup final or a Champions League match. Is he really attacking? I'd say he's fairly attacking. I believe he got 6 assists last season. He created 8 big chances. The XA, expected assist figure, was quite low. So what I'm going to do now is quickly go back to my other computer and check the stats, which I compiled for him. He also got 2 goals, yeah. 134 FPL points. I think he's a fairly decent pick. He's got attacking potential, and I think he'll get even more assists with better finishers around him, but he's not going to be a Trent, in my opinion, where he gets 10, 15 in a season. Maybe I'm wrong. He's still fairly young. He can get to that sort of level. Of course, Trent is a similar age, but yeah, I think Kerkez is fairly attacking, but he's not going to be like Frimpong, maybe, albeit his minutes are going to be more at risk than Milos Kerkez. Yeah, Damsgaard is quite underrated. I don't know his price. I'm guessing it's 5.5 million. It's 6. Yeah, he's still decent. I think Easy, for example, Easy99 in the live chat, had Damsgaard several times last season and he did really well. Best 4.5 million goalkeeper. Keller does stand out to me. Is he necessarily the best? I'm not so sure. I thought Vicario could have been 4.5 or Bayender to start the season, but yeah, they're both 5 million. So realistically, if we're looking at goalkeepers 4.5, it's not looking great. We could see the new Aston Villa signing Bizot take Emi Martinez's place because the Argentine is linked with a move away. I think my favourites, I'm going to say 2 options here. Petrovic and Kelleher. They're my 2 favourite goalkeepers at 4.5 million. You've got Verbruggen, you've got, you know, the newly promoted goalkeepers like Patterson, Darlow or Meslier at Leeds United, but I think Petrovic or Kelleher. And I might even go for them, actually, to save a bit of money. I've obviously got Pickford at the moment. Is Beto a starter for Everton? Could be a good, cheap player. Under David Moyes, he started the vast majority of games, but you've also got Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Ndai typically plays on the left. He's a winger, which is why he's reclassified as a midfielder. But Beto is the main striker right now. He's very frustrating, though. He can miss a lot of big chances. Yeah, Matoma, I like the look of him as a player. Obviously, really good dribbler. FPL-wise, he can still put in some good numbers, and last season, I think he had his best goal-scoring tally. So if I get his stats up quickly, 10 goals, 5 assists, 20 big chances, very good stats there, and 145 FPL points, even though he did miss a few games. So, yeah, I think Matoma is fairly sound, actually. You've also got Welbeck, who scored 4 goals in a pre-season friendly up front. 3 more weeks before the league starts. Time goes fast. You are right, yes. Obviously, just a few weeks ago, I was covering the Club World Cup, fully focusing on that. Since that finished, obviously, I've been doing graphics and stuff for FPL, but now the game's launched, finally. But before you know it, the season's already underway. Any cheap team promotions? Pick 1 each. Yeah, great question. So I have made lists for them. So I'll start off with Burnley. So I think I've made like 10, 11 graphics for their players. So I'm going to pinpoint my favourite one. Okay. So I think Trafford could leave, and you've got Vice as a 4.5 million goalkeeper. Kyle Walker, let's see what he is priced at, actually. Is he 4.5 as well? Let's see. It keeps logging me out. It's so annoying. Let me know in the live chat. Are you also being logged out constantly if you open a new tab in Fantasy Premier League? It's happening quite often to me. But let's see. Walker. Yeah, 4.5. Okay, just to make sure. Twan Sebe, 4.5. New signing. Hartman, another new signing for them. I think my favourite, I mean, Fleming as their striker, 6 million. Is he 6 million or 5.5? That's what I'm going to determine. Yeah, 5.5. Okay, that's a little bit better. Now, I was looking at Edwards, who signed in January, and I was thinking, wow, that's a very good signing for Burnley, but he only got 1 goal and 1 assist. So based on my research, I'm going to say Jadon Anthony, who used to play for Bournemouth. He got 8 goals and 7 assists last season, And the XG, XA, all very healthy. 9.37 XG. And the expected assist, 8.13. So very sustainable. I'm going to say Jadon Anthony from Burnley at the moment. Fleming is a close second. For Leeds United, I mean, Nonto immediately stands out. We knew him, obviously, from the last time Leeds were in the Premier League. Goodmanson, a new signing at left-back. Only 2 goals and 1 assist for Lille last season, though. They signed Harrison from Everton. Aronson, Daniel James. Their main striker, Pirro, with 19 goals and 7 assists. I probably butchered the pronunciation, but hopefully any Dutch people in the chat can, correct me. If not, I'll just double-check that after the stream has ended. But yeah, I'd say their main striker, Pirro, is my favourite. Very good numbers overall. And the XG is 17.17, so very healthy. The last team to cover is Sunderland, who have been very busy in this transfer market. So Mayenda up front, 8 goals, 5 assists. Just got to double check his price. I haven't seen all of them. 5.5 million makes sense. Lefi. And by the way, let's see if he's a striker or a midfielder here. He is a midfielder. 5 million as well. Could be interesting. Let's see. So Mundell. Adingra. Robert Sadiki. I'm not sure if Sirkin or Cherkin will stay. He is linked with a move away. They signed Reinildo Mandava. If you played UCL Fantasy before, he was a ball recovery machine. So he could be very good for the bonus point system in FPL this time round. But my favourite Sunderland player or FPL asset, I'm gonna say Adingra. And that's because I've seen him obviously with Brighton last season, and I think he will up the goals and the assists. That's my current pick, but that could well change the next time I cover newly promoted clubs, of course. And Adingra, priced at 5.5 million. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, Cherkin currently has a wrist injury, but 4 million, that's a very good price. I think a lot of the Sunderland defenders are priced very cheap. Is everyone bench boosting Game Week 1? Okay, so just to make it clear for everyone who's like tuning in and saying, whoa, that's a stacked bench. It's not locked in. It's literally just me playing around with it, finding out player prices and just putting players in. I'll be making a first draft video and I'll be discussing this point about bench boosting in Game Week 1. My current plan is to free hit in Game Week 2 though. I'm not going to say that's locked in, but it is definitely a possibility. And could I also bench boost in Game Week 1? Absolutely. It's in my Premier League settings. Thank you, Kravitskelia 360. I'll have a look and see if I can change that afterwards. Could I do it on the app and then it will update on the website? Probably. But yeah, thank you very much. Rodon, 4 million defender, 46 starts and 5.16 per 90 clearances. Good for my bench. Yeah, very decent one. I just don't fully trust Sunderland, but Sunderland, Leeds United. The thing is, though, look, I think we're going to need these cheap options in our defensive line, so that is definitely a decent shout. Other stats for Rodon, if I can get them up. He scored once last season, but helped Leeds United keep, 25 clean sheets. That's very impressive, actually. And in FPL.team, a lot of people were selecting Rodon, when originally planning their drafts. And with the increased pricing, you could say, I could see him being very template, actually, or having significant ownership. Maybe it's not quite so high now, though. Yeah, 2.2%. That's much lower than it was in FPL.team, actually. So, very nice one. That's a decent shout. I think FPL draft mode is like fantasy draft, but each match day can make different 11 players team with 100 million budget. Yeah, it's a little bit more fun, but also requires more micromanagement. Basically, no transfers, just draft 11 players differently each match day. Yeah, essentially it's a bit like wildcarding every single game week. Wow, thank you, Moman. I did have one earlier. This is definitely not a auto-pick team, though. I think it's fairly decent. How about Wan-Bissaka? Yeah, with West Ham, good fixtures. I just don't trust their defence, to be quite honest with you. But Wan-Bissaka was decent in Fantasy Premier League last season. He got a lot of goal contributions, the most he's ever done. So it's not a terrible shout. If you want that West Ham defensive coverage, I think Wan-Bissaka is definitely reasonable. Let me just double check his price though. 4.5, and I'm going to say yes. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. 4.5 is a reasonable price there. 5 million, I would have said go for somebody else. Thoughts on Welbeck? Yeah, 4 goals the other day in a preseason game. I think Brighton have a fairly mixed start, but Welbeck, Mitoma are the most appealing attackers that they have to offer. Easy also says, or like FIFA Ultimate Team Draft, each position drafting 5 players, picking one thing. They might have taken inspiration from FUT Draft, to be fair. That's a good way of explaining it. Rodgers or Clivert will be a hard decision for me, but I'm close to Clivert for now. Yeah, and it's also a differential play because beyond Game Week 1, Bournemouth have decent fixtures long term, so I'm also quite keen on either Clivert or Semenyo at 7 million. Keenan says, whenever the game launches, everybody goes no Salah Haaland in the first draft, then they always put them back in. That's a fair thing to say, but I need to stress this. This is literally me playing around with the building blocks. I'm looking at the prices and just putting players in. I'm not saying I'm going without Salah Haaland. I'm not saying exclusive, breaking news. Like, I'm not doing that. And I'm going to do several drafts. There'll be one with Haaland, one with Salah, one with both of them, and then one with none. I'm going to play around with it and then find what I like by the time we get to Game Week 1 in my team selection video. So I'm not going to try put a Houdini or what is it? I can't even say the saying right now, but say the saying. Absolutely amazing. Fine to miss Salah. I mean, no one is a must-have, absolutely essential. If you don't have him, you're going to finish outside the top million. But it is a risk. He's going to be very template, and I think he's still worth that 14.5 million price tag. Welcome, Nick. Good to see you. FPL Insight says, do you think Marmoush will start consistently? To be honest, I think he will start most games, but not all. And at 8.5 million as a midfielder, that could be a problem. So out of 38 Premier League games, I think he starts 25 of them, maybe 30, but ideally you'd want 35 plus. And what do you think about Solanke with the Brentford coach, with Spurs now? And could he make Solanke really good like Visser? Yeah, that's a fair comparison and a interesting point to make. I think Solanke will have a much better season this time round. So if you are considering that sort of 7.5 million forward, I think that's fairly decent actually. But you've also got Bowen, you've got Joao Pedro, albeit Bowen is 0.5 million more expensive. But yeah, I think Solanke is definitely worth looking at for Game Week 1. Ben says, well, this is certainly a draft. Wow, maybe not a lot of love for this team. Like I said, it's building blocks, tinkering around with it. I might save it, and then after the stream is done, I'll be making a first draft official where I can put proper thought into it and not literally reacting to prices, talking to people, and then putting players in. So that will be more thought out, and you might like the look of it. But with this sort of strategy and setup, it would be a bench boost in Game Week 1, and then in Game Week 2, I would free hit. But once again, nothing is locked in or certain. Pickford or Raya? I'm going to say Pickford based on Everton's fixtures. Abby Johnson says Frimpong will be a good option during AFCON, as he probably plays right wing. Yeah, I think that could be a real possibility for Liverpool, but they're also in the market, I think, for a winger. I think Rodrigo is a link they have. If they were to sign him, they could easily play Rodrigo on the right, Diaz on the left if he stays, and still have Ekitike up front. So maybe by the time we get there, Frimpong is the right winger, and that's a great pick. And with the AFCON extra transfers, that could be a really astute purchase, but it's not a guarantee right now. Everton signed a really good player, says Nick. Well, like I said, there's a few players I haven't made graphics for, so I'll be having a look and updating stats and stuff. There's a lot of things to go through in my case. Yeah, Igor Jesus, I don't think he starts for Nottingham Forest. I think Chris Wood will remain the main striker, but he will get plenty of game time, I think. Off the bench, and I think he will grow into the role gradually. Maybe at some point he displaces Chris Wood. Maybe we see Chris Wood having a really poor season, or he's struggling for form, and then Igor Jesus comes in. Prashant says, after a long time, Jared Bowen or Ivanosen. My current preference is Jared Bowen. I'm not going to lie that he was more appealing as a midfielder, but I still think with the fixtures, the 8 million price tag, and the way he ended last season, really, really enticing, and I think Bowen is still one of the best forwards in the game. Yeah, Barry's a striker, could be a great cheap striker, and maybe he displaces Beto, who was asked about before. So I do use Brave, and it's because it's like Chrome, but it runs even quicker, and it has, you know, all these extensions and stuff. But yeah, maybe it's a cookie issue or extension issue. I'll have a look. Yeah, it's probably that, to be honest. Does Kudus put Johnson's minutes at risk? Well, Kudus will be first choice over Johnson, and both of them were signed for similar fees, by the way. But Kudus is a significantly better player, even though he didn't really perform well last season. Okay, well, here we go. Someone mentioned Brownhill. Let me just quickly get this up. Yeah, so Brownhill had a really good end to last season, but he's a free agent right now. And also, he got a lot of goals and assists, actually, when I was doing my research, and he really helped Burnley, get promoted. So let me actually quickly check his stats, but I'm not sure who he's linked to. I think Everton might have been linked. Who else? I think West Ham were also linked, but he's currently a free agent. So in the last 10 games, he scored a penalty as well, by the way. Got a brace in his last ever game for Burnley against Millwall. So that's 5-6 goals and 3 assists. No, sorry, 2 assists, but still really good for a budget midfielder if he were to be added to FPL again. Let's see if he does join a Premier League club, of course. Sanchez in goal at 5 million seems like a solid choice. I think so, and Chelsea have good long-term fixtures, so it plays out fairly well. Yeah, I think Goalkeeper does start for Brighton. In my current predicted lineup, I've got Kadioglu on the right and also Goalkeeper on the left, but let's not forget Purvis Estupiñán, so that could definitely be a factor. Best 4.5 million defenders, I would say Konsa. Wan-Bissaka would be another one. Maybe the list ends there. I need to put more thought into it and identify the other options, but yeah, those two spring to mind immediately. Yeah. Even Collins, for example, would have been insane value at 4.5, but he's priced at 5 million now. Tarkovsky and Branthwaite both 5.5. It is quite difficult, I think, to narrow it down to these options here. Romero at 5 million is probably a bit too high. I think he should have been 4.5 like Mickey van der Ven. I think Udogie could be a decent shout. I know Jed Spence ended, had a really good season for Spurs, one of their star players, but Udogie had a very solid end to the Europa League campaign, and I think he will be the main starting left back. But yeah, I'd say Udogie would be another consideration for you, and I also expect Spurs to have a much better Premier League season. Let me actually quickly tinker with a few things. So Gabriel out for Borro, who's 5.5 million. Still a little bit on the high side, you could say. Yeah, if he's 5 million, I'd be all over that. 5.5 is a little bit... Ugh. But yeah, I do like the defensive depth. I'm not that against what I've got there. My main issues are my midfield and forward structure, and maybe having Salah in there will help with that. So, let's see. I'm going to put Salah in here for now. I'm going to put Enzo. And of course, I'm going to be like 4 million off. And that's where I can downgrade one of these forwards. Yeah, but even then I'd need one more downgrade. And that's where Gabriel to a 5 million defender could come into play. But as you can see, I'm considering different avenues and nothing is locked in. I think Marmoush would make way as well. Let's do something like this. We'll put Kudus back in. And then I could go to a 5.5 million forward as well. But I'd probably just go for a 4.5 million option. Let's see. And let's go forwards as well. Jesus Christ. Okay. What? Why did it reset the price as well? Oh, it's probably because it was a different position as before. Yeah. Bloody website. Okay, so these are the 4.5 million forwards we have to work with. Nothing spectacular. That is disgusting, I can't lie. But maybe I'll just go for the 5.5 million options then. Yeah, Fleming, who I mentioned before. Tough start for Burnley, though. Yeah, Brian signed a Greek striker as well. Yeah, there's a lot of things to consider here, but I'm going to say 5.5 million. Mayenda, decent shout. Yeah, and Sunderland have the best fixtures of the newly promoted clubs. I'm going to put Beto in there for now. But yeah, look, like I said, things can definitely change. And then here, Beto would be my kind of go-to bench player. Him and Enzo would probably rotate most of the time, if not with Kudus. But yeah, I think that's fairly decent. I probably will go back to what I showed you before and then tinker throughout the night. Is Stupinian likely to go AC Milan, Kadioglu as first choice left back? But Kadioglu can also play on the right. But that is a good point that you raised there. I actually was unaware of the AC Milan links. Kevy says, also, I'm going no City, I think. Spice it up a little. Well, with City, though, they're just too much rotation there. Yeah, I think so, Benciano. I mean, the classification to midfielder makes him promising, but the minutes will be a big concern. Will be interesting to see if Salah carries Liverpool as much as last season. I don't think he will. I think the likes of Wirtz, as you mentioned, the other fours they have, like Gakpo, then you've got the midfielders like McAllister and Szoboszlai. I think they'll all play a part. Yeah, last season was a big carry job in my opinion, and without Salah, Liverpool probably still win the league, but not as comfortably as they did. I think he just set the tone from the beginning. He had his best ever campaign. I think he'll drop off a little bit, but still get you 30-plus goal contributions, probably 20-plus goals. I really want Wirtz alongside him at 8.5 million. I struggle to see him flop. Yeah, I think he's too underpriced. I think Wirtz should have come in at 9.5 million. Edsty says, personally going without any Arsenal, plan to get them on wildcard when fixtures turn, or even try and save up 5 transfers in an ideal world. And you can also bring them in against Leeds United in Game Week 2 using the free hit, because guess what? Every single chip, well, we got 2 of them. One for the first half of the season, and then one for the second. And that's what I'm going to do now. Yeah, we might as well do that now quickly. I'm not going to read out everything because otherwise I'd be here all day. And I did this in my key changes video earlier. So feel free to pause, rewind, all that good stuff. And you can see all the key details, you know, about AFCON transfers, for example. We will get 5 free transfers in Game Week 16 to compensate. So one strategy is to basically use up every single transfer by Game Week 15. And you can benefit more from the additional transfers because everyone will have 5 in Game Week 16 to compensate for the African Cup of Nations. In terms of assists, we do have a new rule. It's kind of very, they've said they simplified it basically, and they are going to grant more assists now, and it's all about the intended destination. But check out my key changes video because everything is talked about in a lot of detail. And also the bonus points system. This is basically how it works usually. We all kind of know this, but feel free to pause. As I said before, the key changes include goalkeeper saves, goal line clearances, which I also alluded to earlier in this stream, penalty goals, and successful tackles. There have been a lot of changes, and that includes positional ones. So as you can see, Skelly is now a defender. Lewis Potter for Brentford is also a defender. The likes of Ndai, Sessegnon, Gakpo, and Marmoush have been reclassified to midfielders. And we now have a few new defenders, Jesus Christ. Mateus Nunes was a midfielder. He is now a defender. The same goes for Nico Riley at Manchester City. And then Mateus Cunha from a forward to a midfielder. Jarrod Bowen, of course, one of the biggest ones. He was a midfielder last season. He is now a forward. And Rodrigo Gomez has been reclassified to a defender this time round. So defensive contributions, there will be questions about how it works and all of that. It's all answered in my key changes video, but I want to show you some graphics about how that would change things in the defense and midfield. So there is a reason why Tarkowski cost 5.5 million, by the way, because he got 44 defensive contribution points last season. So that would have translated his tally and actually added it up to 149. Even Bednarek, as bad as Southampton were, he would have got 100 FPL points because he would have gotten 40 of them from defensive contributions. Then Dean Howson as well, very high up. Murillo was outstanding last season, and he would have got 168 points. That would take him to second in the overall defender tally. Then you've got Wout Faes, Lacroix, O'Shea, Branthwaite, Collins, and Kilman. The same applies to midfielders as well. Moises Caicedo would have been a non-option in FPL, but now he can be considered at 5.5 million. From 98 points to 140. You've also got Elliot Anderson from Nottingham Forest, Joao Gomez, Idrissa Gana Gueye, Christian Norgard, Baleba, Lewis Cook, and Gravenberch. All of them got 30 plus points from defensive contributions. And this would have been the defender tally So look at Trent, who can get the bonus points and the assists, but only 6 from defensive contributions. So Milenkovic, Murillo, Van Dijk, Gvardiol, Collins, and Munoz all would have scored higher than Trent, who was the most expensive defender in the game last season. You've also got Tarkowski right up there, Lacroix, and Dean Howson. So this is the 200-point club. Only 5 players scored 200 plus last season. Salah, Mbumo, Palmer, Isak, and Chris Wood. And all of the other graphics have been covered in, well, the video earlier today. So I think it's probably best to leave all of that for that specific video. So be sure to do that. And once the stream is gone, you can still have more FPL content. That's a double upload today. Hopefully you do enjoy it. Going back to the website and my fabulous draft, I know a lot of you are loving it. Yes, there is definitely a lot to think about here. Thank you, Mr. Iceman, for being a captain. So welcome aboard, and a big up to every single member and patron, and especially to those like Paredes and Napstars who have gifted multiple throughout UCL, Club World Cup, and FPL streams recently. Daddy DeVito says, thoughts about bench boost Game Week 1 and wildcard Game Week 2. Playing in Game Week 1 as a free hit bench boost and catching the price rises with wildcard in Game Week 2. Look, it's definitely another way of playing it. It's a sound strategy, but I think Game Week 2 would be too early to wildcard because we don't have enough information. The good side about it is the price rises, as you say, but a lot of the players you bring in might be going up in price, but their performances will dip, or we get kind of false expectations from the first game week of the season. I think it's probably best to wildcard a little bit later, even though we get 2 wildcards now. So from that perspective, I think that is more viable to use chips early as you're planning to do. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm actually leaning towards the free hit in Game Week 2 instead, where I can triple up on Arsenal, but still go without them until Game Week 7, for example. And that's where I could wildcard. That's my current plan, but definitely play it your way and have your own thoughts and ideas. And if you're well committed to it and you have a good feeling about that sort of strategy, go for it, because that's the way to win your mini leagues, potentially win the whole thing, to go about things your way. Is Stupinian to replace Theo Hernandez at AC Milan? Yeah, that makes sense. I want Gakpo now that he's a mid, but so frustrating owning such a good asset who isn't a regular starter. Random benchings are so annoying. Exactly that, and that's why Marmoush is probably not going to be a long-term pick for me. He might not even make it beyond this building blocks draft, which is what I'm calling it right now. Lucas says, just joined. I was wondering why Son has a low ownership. In my opinion, do you think he's a good option? Well, he was terrible last season. That's the main reason why he has such low ownership. I think he's also priced a little bit too high. I think he should have come in at 7.5. I think he's a little bit higher than that. I'll double check it. If I'm not mistaken, he's 8.5. Based on what he did last season, I know he got 10 assists and stuff and 7 goals, but the drop-off was massive. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh, but his creativity stats are always impressive. He had 16 big chances created, 129 FPL points. Let me actually check his ownership figure, though. That's something I haven't seen just yet. 3.3, yeah. Not too surprising. It's similar to how he ended last season with 4.1% ownership. Yeah, I think from Spurs, you can save 2 million in the process with Kudus. That is the one I'm kind of looking at the moment. So yeah, that is probably my recommendation. Going for Kudus instead, saving a few millions. And I also think Kudus will have a very good season. Are Sporting too aggressive in terms of price of Gyökeres, and how will he adapt in the team since Arsenal are now in Singapore for pre-season? Well, Arsenal couldn't train today because of thunderstorms, so they had to delay training until the afternoon. So yeah, not a great start to pre-season. I don't think Sporting are being unreasonable with the fixed fee. The problem is they're kind of haggling over add-ons, and I think they've basically broken an agreement with Gyökeres, and also they keep asking for more. That is the impression I'm getting at the moment, but maybe Arsenal are just being really, picky and they're penny pinching, so that could be causing the issue. I don't know all the ins and outs, but I think Sporting are being unreasonable with the add-ons. That's my perspective on it. Mr. SCR says Elanga will have a minimum of 15 goals and 10 assists this season. Watch this space. I don't think he will. I think he can get 10 plus FPL assists. With goals, my prediction would be 7 or 8 for Elanga. So I think he will slightly improve the numbers maybe, but not 15 goals. I'd be surprised by that. Yeah, fair enough, Edsty. Was that in the video today or the preliminary draft? Let me know. LLJ says, thoughts on my team? Not too sure about Vicario. Game week 1 looks good against Burnley, but yeah, I still don't trust Spurs defensively to have their goalkeeper as your main option. Van Dijk, I think, is very solid. Mikalenko, Wan-Bissaka, happy with that. Salah, Wirtz, Palmer, really strong midfield. Kudus, Cherky, Bowen, Pedro. So yeah, I really like the look of it. Vicario is my main concern, and also Cherky. I'm not sure if he starts the vast majority of games for Man City. Not from the beginning anyway, so those two would be the ones I'd maybe change a little bit. So Cherky to Enzo Fernandez, or maybe you go to a different 6.5 million midfielder. Or perhaps you'd go from Vicario to Kelleher or Petrovic, and then you move Cherky to Rodgers, Semenyo. I think that could work very well for you. The only downside to going for Petrovic is that he faces Liverpool away in Game Week 1. But besides that, I think he could be the best 4.5 million goalkeeper in the game. I think Gabriel's better than Gvardiol, Eddie, because Gvardiol could be rotated more often this season. We saw it in the Club World Cup. And in terms of defensive contribution points, I think Gabriel will be right up there this season if he stays fit. So Gabriel is my answer. Have you done a Haaland and Salah draft yet? No, I haven't. I'm literally tinkering right now and modifying things a little bit, but yeah, it's possible. You can have a solid team with both of them in, but sacrifices always have to be made. You might go without a premium defender, or you go really cheap in the midfield and forward line with your other options, but it's possible. Is having double chips making managers more aggressive, or using it then relaxed use like before? It goes one of two ways, right? It can be seen as aggressive in a sense that you use your chips early, like people are thinking of wildcarding in Game Week 2, or bench boosting Game Week 1, free hitting Game Week 2 as well. Of course, you can't use two at the same time, but people are considering different strategies. On the other hand, I think with having double the amount of chips, and also the AFCON transfers, I think hits will be less prevalent this season, at least in the first half of the campaign. So from that perspective, people might be less aggressive and they'll be more conservative with their transfers. Obviously, around the Game Week 15 period, not so much, because it makes a lot of sense to be aggressive, use your transfers, and then get 5 in Game Week 16. But it goes one of two ways. I think there are some good changes to FPL this season. They're not perfect, but there are some good things about them, even though not every single change will be welcome. Yeah, my FPL ID is like 8,000, Mishi. 8,397, I think. I need to double check that. Thank you very much, Mr. Iceman. Thanks, mate. Wanted to support my favorite FPL creator. That's greatly appreciated. Obviously, you've been around the channel and the blocks for several years now, so thank you very much for your support, and all the best for Game Week 1. Of course, we still have a long way until that happens, but my plan is still to do content, even though there is an upcoming holiday very soon. But FPL, UCL Fantasy, will be covered on this channel as always, and it's a pleasure to have you on board. Eddie Cassie says, which of Man United's new players should I have at the moment? Again, Boom and Cunha are the standouts. I think Bruno at 9 million is slightly less appealing, even though he probably will have the penalties. I would avoid all their defenders right now. Anana's injured in goal. Bayern there at 5 million just isn't really worth it, in my opinion. And they've got a really tough start. Now, fixtures aren't everything. They're only one part of the FPL parcel. But yeah, for me, my favourite is going to be Mbeumo. Cunha is a close second, and Fernandes is third. Yeah, Matheus Nunes, I'd probably avoid him, as mentioned earlier, because Man City will rotate quite a lot, even in their defensive line, and he won't get that many defensive contribution points. So at a similar price, you can get Gabriel, Tarkowski, Branthwaite, all at around 5.5 to 6 million. Virgil van Dijk. Jay says, hey Dylan, hope you've been well. Any thoughts on Vuskovic from Spurs as a 4 million defender? Yeah, I've been asked about him before. I'm just not entirely convinced he starts from the get-go. Romero, it looks like he's going to stay. But yeah, Vuskovic is someone else I need to make graphics on. There's a few signings that obviously have been announced in the last couple of days. But I just don't see him being thrown in from the get-go, to be quite honest with you. So I'm going to avoid him for now. Like, could he start in Game Week 1 against Burnley when Romero and Van der Ven start against PSG 3 days earlier? That could happen. But what about Game Week 2 and beyond? That's where the issue lies. Yeah, Lucas, obviously you asked about Son earlier. I think Son could be decent, but there's a chance he leaves before Game Week 1 even begins. I'm not even sure he's going to stay at the club, to be honest. It's a good time to leave after winning the Europa League. If he does stay and he's part of Thomas Frank's plans, yeah, I think as the starting left winger for Spurs, he could be a decent option. But I can't help but think Mbumo, Cunha, Wirtz, they all offer much better value, especially Wirtz, at the same price tag. Easy says, new season, new era of FPL. Let's see how we do in this campaign in rank, especially new changes with defensive contributions and double chips. Yeah, plenty of food for thought. A lot of it is covered, of course, in my Key Changes podcast, but I think the defensive contribution points is similar to UCL Fantasy with the ball recoveries. And by the way, ball recoveries are a thing for forwards in the bonus point system, which was also talked about in that podcast. But that would probably bode well for me. I typically do really well in UCL Fantasy, and I'm looking to replicate that in FPL this season. Yeah, and Dai is my favourite Everton attacker overall. I've only got Beto because I'm looking at a 5.5 million forward. He's the best of a bad bunch, in my opinion. But in Dai in the midfield, very enticing indeed. He might even take the place of Enzo Fernandez or Kudus in this setup. And originally what I went for was actually Palmer. Let me bring up the players I had originally. So put Palmer. Let's also get rid of Enzo Fernandez. I'm just not too keen on Marmoush. I'm really not. So yeah, Beto. I put Visser, actually. This would be a bench boost team if I were to go for something like this. Ugh, yeah. Looks too strong in a way, but there's no Salah or Haaland, which is the big negative about it. So this is going to be saved as my first... Is even first. It's a rough draft. It's really rough. Permission denied. What the? Do you see what I mean? What is wrong with this FPL app? Yeah, so it's basically logged me out again. Yeah, thank you very much, lads. Thank you very much. I'm going to log in whilst the camera focuses on my ugly mug. So yeah, basically all the changes I just did. I think maybe FPL didn't like my draft, so they're just telling me, you know, you shouldn't be doing that. Maybe that's what they're doing. But let's go back to my team. And, oh, wait, I think it's saved. Oh, no, it's not. I already had Visser. Okay, I had Visser, Joao Pedro, and Bone from the auto-pick team. Interesting. Okay, get rid of all of these players. They're definitely not going to make it to my final draft. Van Dijk could, though. Cucurella, not a bad shout. Same with Saliba. Pickford, still interesting. So, yeah, Dubravka. Pickford, could be Sanchez. I'm going to go for Robert Sanchez. I do like having Colwill to cover Chelsea defensively. I mean, yeah. Maybe I'll go for this. Go for Sanchez and then go for one of Branthwaite or Tarkowski. So yeah, Tarkowski in here. Let's bring in... Let's see. I'm going to bring in Konsa. Probably another cheap defender as well. Einat 5 million. Thoughts on Marino? I don't think he'll be a regular star at Arsenal, especially if they sign Gyökeres, and Havertz will be ahead of him in the pecking order up front. In the midfield, it'll be Rice, Zubimendi and Odegaard. So Marino will get a few starts here and there, get game time off the bench, but I wouldn't recommend him in Fantasy Premier League right now. Easy says likely getting more overall points than last season. Yeah, I'd be surprised if we didn't. So this should be a record-breaking, you know, FPL winner, getting maybe 3,000 points or something like that. This type of fantasy game needs strategy and luck. I think you need it in any fantasy game, whether it's Club World Cup Fantasy, where I finished top 10k, I think around 8k, UCL Fantasy, but yeah, in FPL, all of them, you need a lot of luck. We don't know how number one in the world last season will do. Well, typically what I've seen in the last few seasons is that they just are nowhere near it in the following campaign, but it's so difficult to maintain that sort of consistency and, well, strategy, skill, luck, have all of that go your way. Best 6.5 million and under midfield options. So I'm going to have more, you know, more of a look at it, but immediately I look at Kudus, Enzo Fernandez. They really stand out to me. I think Caicedo, Declan Rice, really enticing options there. What is Gibbs White? 7.5. That is significant price rise there as well. Obviously, Rodgers and Semenyo, Kluivert, they're just above that threshold as well at 7 million. I think if Cherki can break into that main City team, he'd be very enticing, but right now, I just don't think it's worth it. Okay, so let's see if I can replicate what I had before. Actually forgot the 5th defender I had, but I'll get back to that very soon. I think it was Gabriel. So Gabriel in there. In the midfield, I'm going to go for Palmer, Wirtz, Kudus, and then 15.5 million. Yeah, so not Enzo Fernandez. I did have Marmoush in there, and then 7 million, which was Rodgers. So yeah, that was my team that I had before. Hopefully I can actually make the transfers. Okay, yeah, there you go. Just a rough draft, like I said. Bench boost active. You can only play 2 chips, triple captain and bench boost. So yeah, with this team, it would be bench boost active. And let's see, how do we organize this? Rodgers on the bench. Yeah, Con's on the bench as well. I mean, it's not too shabby, I guess. It's not the best bench boost you ever see. And Dubravka, to be honest, would let it down because Nick Pope will probably be available by then. Or, yeah, Newcastle get a new goalkeeper. They've been linked with one for quite a while now. But, yeah, that's just like a rough draft. I have to stress that, okay? It's rough. Bowen captain, Wirtz. Oh, yeah, Palmer as well. I'm going to say Palmer vice captain at the moment. Really, just a first look at FPL with the pricing. The game has launched, obviously, today, around 5 hours ago now. And you've got 2 videos to look forward to. Obviously, this stream and the Key Changes podcast, which was released earlier. And a first draft podcast will be imminent. Keep your eyes peeled for that. I'll answer a few more questions, and then we'll call it a break and a day. I've been speaking for a lot of hours now with both videos combined. Hi, Dylan. FPL not working on Opera, lol. It's still loading. Yeah, on Brave, it doesn't show up properly, so it should be purple, but everything is white. I need to maybe delete some cookies and stuff. It keeps logging me out, which is the main issue I'm finding with the website. Yeah, so with this current team, my captain will be between Palmer and Bowen. Wirtz would be an outside shout, I think, but yeah, I can't see myself deviating away from Salah if I had him, Haaland, Palmer, or Bowen at the moment. Native Faith says best premiums in order out of Salah, Haaland, Palmer, Isak, and Saka. Yeah, with fixtures also in mind, I'm going to say Salah first, Palmer second, Haaland third, Isak fourth, and Saka fifth. Why not Mikalenko from Everton? Well, I think Tarkowski would be better for defensive contribution points, which is the main reason why. If I have a quick look now at the pricing again, so Mikalenko is 5 million. Yeah, you do save 0.5. That's a good shout, but I think Tarkowski and Branthwaite could score 30, 40 points more than Mikalenko, maybe 20 points because of the defensive contributions. Is that worth the 0.5 million? That's subjective. A lot depends on the timing, when you get these players in, when you sell them, and you need some luck with that. But as a kind of season keep, if you can make it work in other areas, I think Tarkowski and Branthwaite would be better. But definitely a good suggestion. Mikalenko is fairly injury prone, but still a good option nonetheless. So yeah, this was my auto pick team, which you can see, Jesus Christ. I probably need to do a water break. Bloody idiot. And yeah, this is the modification team. I mean, which one is the auto pick team? Who is the bot? Is it me or is it FPL? Who knows? It didn't let me auto sign in the website. The website's buggy. Yeah, it is buggy. I think the website has a lot of issues, more so than last season when it officially launched, actually. FPL Cortex says, and on my phone, when I try to pick a team, it kicks me out of the app. Yeah, same here. When I made the transfers, it said permission denied, so it basically locked me out, and I had to re-sign in, select everyone again, and then have it go through. This cannot happen in Gimmick 1 during the deadline stream. Ivan says, why can't they make prices more accurate like Pickford 5.2 or 5.3? I think probably to avoid confusion, because for casuals and stuff, it's probably easier to see people at either 0.0 or 0.5. But to be honest, this is something we see in every fantasy game, except Club World Cup Fantasy, where player prices were fixed, and we had probably this at 7.8 million, for example. But in UCL Fantasy and FPL, we always get these prices at 0.5 or 0. Kevin Schadder's price, he was extremely good per minute last season. I believe he's 7 million. I haven't seen every single price. Yeah, he's 7 million, which does make sense. The same as Semenyo and Morgan Rogers. Jack Bauer says, is it too early to start looking at Foden? Well, I think with Man City, they will appeal, but the problem with him, Cherki and Marmoush is the minutes. That's the main issue. But yeah, Foden did really well in the Club World Cup, even off the bench. And I think he'll get more minutes this season than what he did in the last campaign, and he'll do much better, surely. He's a quality player. He just had a really bad campaign, and it's time for him to bounce back and start competing for these awards again, because he is one of the best wingers and attacking midfielders in the Premier League. Kevy says, unsure whether to go with Gyökeres or Saka to cover Arsenal. Really waiting on Arsenal to sign forward before my draft is serious. Yeah, and Gyökeres, we don't even know what his price will be. I'm assuming 9.5 million, but it could be 10. I mean, for example, Goldhead suggested 7.5 to 8.5, which in my opinion will be too cheap. But yeah, I think Saka is really consistent, reliable. You can still go for him at 10 million. And Gyökeres at a similar price could be on penalties. And I think he'll do really well at Arsenal, to be honest. He's a game changer for the Gunners. What do you think of Ismaila Sarr? So 6.5 million, good price for him. I was a bit disappointed with him personally when I owned him. I just didn't really get the best timings with Ismaila Sarr, and a lot of his big returns came against Aston Villa. So if we have a look, Game Week 3, Aston Villa away, Ismaila Sarr, lock it in. He might do really well against them once again. He did it in the FA Cup semi-final and across both league games last season. Barnes at 4.5 million forward, playing for Burnley and taking penalties, is a hidden gem. The thing is, though, Fleming is their main striker now. Obviously, if any Burnley fans are in the chat, you might disagree or correct me. Obviously, you'll have more knowledge on your team than I do, but yeah, let me quickly check Ashley Barnes' stats again. But Fleming was the main striker towards the end of the campaign. Now, Ashley Barnes did sign a new contract. I think it's a 1-year extension. But yeah, in the Championship last season, he started 2 games. 21 appearances, so a lot of them off the bench. I'm just not really there without Ashley Barnes. I mean, could he give you 5-6 points from time to time, scoring a goal? Yeah, he can, but yeah, it's going to be Fleming as the main striker. Has there ever been an FPL manager winning back-to-back seasons? No, not winning it, but I think there might have been someone who finished top 10 back-to-back, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know who. I can't remember if it was like 10 years ago or something, but I think we've seen someone win it and then finish really high the next season. Whether it's top 10 or top 100, I need to double-check, but yeah, winning it back-to-back is, that's, I'm not going to say impossible, but really, really unlikely. Ivan says, and you can also leave 0.1 million in the bank for Game Week 2. So this is in... Oh, yeah. Building upon your first point about players being priced at 5.2, 5.3. I get that. The Honourable says, because it's never accurate, there is always some percentage of managers who would price it differently. At least this way it's easier to calculate. Yeah, I mean, if Gyökeres is like 9.4, people are like, why is he not 9.5? Or if Erling Haaland's 10.9, well, no, he's not going to be 10.9. If he's like 13.8, they're like, well, just round him up to 14. I mean, I get the point. It is a little bit different. Club World Cup Fantasy had their own thing with it, and the World Cup also has really specific pricing. But in UCL, FPL, and most fantasy games, we get this sort of system. I can't even speak. The purple mode is dark mode, and white is light mode. Check settings. Yes, you did say that. But I need to see settings. Can I do it on the app? I mean, maybe that's what you're responding to. But yeah, thank you to those that have let me know. Those that told me. See settings. Am I even signed in on the app? I am, apparently. So I haven't been logged out of the app yet. Fantasy notifications, help and rules. Not sure if I can even change it here. So yeah, it's probably going to be on the website. Okay, I'm going to change the scene to the camera and then see if I can quickly modify this now. So we can get used to this new thing. And guess what? I got logged out again on the website. What are they doing? And settings. Well, I'll probably stumble upon it eventually. Appearance here. Yeah, dark. Okay, thank you. I don't know why I was on light. I think it's the default one, that's why. Okay. Okay, theme added. Let's see how that looks with my graphics as well. Ooh, wait, what? Why is it not... Wait, what? I saved it, but it's still light. Yeah, theme successfully applied. Are you sure? Wow, yeah, it basically logged me out again. What is wrong with this? Yeah, the website is very buggy at the moment, which is a shame. Yeah, my FPL one is still white. It's not a big deal. I mean, who cares? It's white or purple, but I do prefer the purple, you know? Just saying. Just bloody saying. Yeah, that's really, really weird. So I did change it, but apparently it's just not doing it. So yeah, it just keeps logging me out too often. Yeah, when I go to the Premier League section, maybe that's the problem. It has to be the FPL section, but normally it applies to every single part of the website. Yeah, it's just not doing it. Maybe it's also a browser issue again with Brave. So I'm just going to leave it at that, to be honest. Yeah, it's not... I'll probably sort it out for the next stream or video anyway. But yeah, for now, I don't have purple like you lot. So there you go. That's a bit of shame. Bit of shame, mate. Okay, well, I think we'll leave it at that. I'm not going to keep wrestling with the website about the bloody stuff. That should be sorted eventually. Maybe a refresh is all that it needs in terms of relaunching the browser. Also deleting cookies and stuff like that. But yeah, there we go. So if you haven't already, join my league. The code is WFF0U7. There is a code in the description and also an auto-join link, so it's very simple to join my mini-league. Here are the stats of two of the best players in the game, Haaland, Salah. The debate just keeps raging on. Who do we go for? Maybe even both. And what does that mean for our 50-man squad? But last season, Salah was the clear winner. The year before that, Erling Haaland. And since he's joined the Premier League, to be honest, he scored more than anybody else. And he still got 22 goals last season in 31 appearances. But just look at the big chances and XG for both of them. Monster figures, shots in the box as well, shots overall, shots on target. But then you got Salah's creativity stats as well, 89 key passes and 28 big chance created. They are incredible numbers overall. And one website I want to recommend is fpl.team, which I used for my preliminary draft, and I'll be using this constantly throughout this season. And it's a great way to compare chip strategies, which obviously will be even more prominent now with 2 free hits, triple captains, wildcards, and bench boosts. So I think an early chip is definitely on the cards for me, either in Game Week 1 or 2, maybe across both Game Weeks, like bench boost in Game Week 1 and free hitting in Game Week 2. But going back to the website, this amazing website, this was my auto-pick team, and I've made a few changes, and this would be a decent bench boost squad, even though Dubravka probably lets it down anyway. Imagine FPL Game Week 1 seems like Club World Cup Match Day 1. Well, yeah, I'll try to lock in earlier this time around just in case, but based on these kind of problems we're seeing already with the app, I'm not exactly too optimistic, to be honest. Why no Salah in your draft? Like I said, it's a really rough one. I'm going to be making a first draft very soon, and I'll be tinkering, improving, and I'll be making multiple drafts, to be honest. One with Salah, one with Haaland, one with both of them, and comparing these different premiums as well. Let's see what else we have. Thoughts on Chris Wood? Still solid, but I'm less keen on him now than I was last season when I actually started the campaign with Chris Wood, one of my best picks in an otherwise poor season. Yeah, I also think he's not going to get as many bonus points because of the changes to the BPS. And I also think Forest will do worse in general. You've also got the departure of Elanga. Gibbs White is linked with Spurs. Obviously, that is still raging on, that transfer saga. But yeah, I think Chris Wood could also have his minutes shared with Igor Jesus as well. So I think Chris Wood will score fewer goals, probably between 10 to 15, and he won't get 200 FPL points in my opinion. Gutonga says, who should I captain in Game Week 1, guys? Well, I think Salah's still a standout. You've got Erling Haaland, Palmer. Bowen would be a consideration. I think Salah will be number 1. Want to sign a City player? It's Haaland, since he's likely not part of Pep Roulette. He was still a little bit in Club World Cup Fantasy, but yeah, I think Erling Haaland will be one of the more reliable FPL picks from Man City. Zach says Pep Roulette will strike and he might just bench Marmoush in some games. I know, and like I said, this is really rough and I'm going to be thinking about this in the first draft video. It's probably going to be very different to this because it's a rough one and I was reacting to the pricing in this stream. FPL admin is the new admin from Club World Cup Fantasy. Well, if they saw what they did and they hired them, then yeah, FPL are damning themselves on purpose, maybe. Dylan, Saka and Pedro Neto or Palmer and Rodgers? I'm going to go for Palmer and Rodgers, but that's a close one. I think Pedro Neto will have a better season in terms of goals and assists. He's never really been a great goal scorer, but always a top dribbler and chance creator. And Saka is very consistent, but it'd be Palmer and Rodgers for me. You can play FPL with a lot of people. I mean, my mini league has a lot of different people, thousands of members, so it doesn't have to be just friends per se. So yeah, you can create mini leagues, one for your family, one for your friends, and then one with whoever you invite and those that join it. Verts under Goalkeeper or Gabriel and Semenyo? Oof, that's a good question. I'm going to say Verts under Goalkeeper, and that's because I think Verts is criminally underpriced, maybe. He should be at least 9.5 million. Yeah, thanks, JP. Thank you very much. That's amazing. Eze price? Yeah, so we'll cover that quickly. Eze's price, 7.5. Yeah, 7.5. So no real surprises there. Yeah, FPL always has prizes. Not sure if Club World Cup Fantasy had any, but yeah, FPL will always have prizes. I mean, it's typically you win like a ticket. If you finish first in the world, you choose a game you want to go to. In Use Your Fantasy, you get a PS5. Even if you win, what is it? The Manager of the Month award, I think it is. But in FPL, you also get like goodie bags and stuff like that, kind of simple prizes. But yeah, people complain about it. Still a bit of fun. It's better than nothing, to be honest. Thank you to Reza for being a differential. We have a new member in the house. Big up to all the new members from today, and also to those that have been supporting the channel for quite a while, and also to Paredes and Napstars for gifting multiple memberships in the last couple of live streams, and very soon I'll be gifting them myself. At the beginning of each month, I'll be gifting those as well, and I think the next time I'll be doing that will be for the Game Week 1 deadline stream, actually, so keep your eyes peeled for that too. Let me see if I can quickly do it now. I don't think I can, but if not, it will be done for the next stream. Yeah, so in the next stream, in around 3 weeks' time, I will be gifting 10 memberships. If there was a stream somehow earlier, at the beginning of August, then okay, fair enough, but I'll keep you peeled about that. Yeah, I'm not going to fall for that, to be honest. I mean, someone actually told me, oh, you don't really get too many betas in your stream, you know, people trying to catch you off guard. Then guess what? The following day, it happens. Car Home, Money $1 million says Easy 99. Christian United says Thorson and Boomer and Cunha now, they killed their careers at United. Wow. I mean, it can still work well for them. United has been a graveyard recently for players, but I still think Mbeumo and Cunha are used to that sort of system. They have played in those roles before, especially Cunha. I think they'll do fairly well, especially Mbeumo. I've got a good feeling about him, but yeah, a lot remains to be seen. Maybe it's not under Amrim where they succeed. Maybe it's a different manager who comes in and they get the best out of Cunha and Mbeumo simultaneously. and United go to new heights. Maybe it's under Amorim, who knows? But yeah, last season was unacceptable. This will now be the first full season under this manager, and he'll have this pre-season to really get his ideas across. So I do think United will be much better this time round. Suzanne puts his team, or her team. Interesting stuff there. Joao Pedro proving to be very popular. Declan Rice is decent. Wirtz and Palmer. And you've got Salah. I like the look of that. Beto as a cheap forward. So I think the forward line, I get it. You're going for that really expensive midfield, and it does pay off, but I'm a bit concerned about the forward line. I'd probably want to add a little bit more to it, whether it's Vissa or you go for Isak, which would obviously be very difficult to achieve. Jared Bowen. But Brogdon's an interesting pick at 4.5 million. I am leaning towards Petrovic and Kelleher at that price tag. And the defense is really solid. I like that. And to be honest, you got Petrovic, so you're rotating goalkeepers. I get that. That could work fairly well. It's not something I typically do. I think the last time I did it was 2 or 3 years ago, and it worked quite well. But yeah, recently I've just kind of stuck with one main goalkeeper and a cheap backup. But I think Verbrugge and Petrovic is a decent rotating goalkeeper pair. So yeah, really solid defensive line. Midfield looks great, but it does come at the cost of your forward line, in my opinion. Adingra or Beto? I have McNeil right now. Well, Adingra is a midfielder and Beto's a forward, so they're kind of different. They're apples and oranges. You can't really compare them. Unless you're talking about your starting 11, which is fair enough, but yeah. I'm going to say Beto at the moment. Short pre-live stream before deadline game week 1. It's possible. It's just I'm on holiday around that time in early August, so I'm back on the 13th of August. But the plan is to still do videos and stuff and get the main piece of content out. And then once I'm back, I'll be fully recharged and we'll be just covering everything you need to know. And of course, for the game week 1 deadline stream, I will be here. Will FPL add something before game week 1? Probably not. I don't think there'll be anything else. This is the game. These are the prices and the chips, and maybe they build up something midway through the season or something like that, but I don't expect the assistant manager or something like that to return this season. It depends. I mean, the good thing about that chip was that it caused a lot of variation in terms of chip strategies, but yeah, I also think there were some massive swings at times with the AM chip. Yo, Dylan, good to be back for FPL. Yes, it is. Yeah, Daud, I can't really repeat this too much more. I have covered this extensively. This is a really rough draft. I can't stress it enough. I'm going to be making a first draft where I'll be putting more thought into it, because essentially what I did in this stream was react to the prices with the website going live and just picking players and kind of seeing what I like and what sort of structure I want to aim for. This is not my final team. I'm not going to go into Game Week 1 with this. Marmush, for example, really unlikely will stay there. And if possible, I will bring in the likes of Salah and or Erling Haaland, but you can't have them all. And in my case, I've got neither, but it's only at the moment with this rough draft. Yeah, Cherky, I think, will be a big rotation risk, just like Marmush, I think, and also Phil Foden. Any Man City player, you know what the risk is. So obviously the potential's high, the ceiling is as well, but there's also the possibility that it goes massively wrong. They are both 5.5, so I can either get Beto in the forward line or Adingra in the midfield. I'm going to say Beto at the moment. Demon puts a squad. Yeah, solid stuff. The doggy in there. Mark Gay, who is linked with Liverpool at the moment. So you've gone quite expensive with the goalkeepers. Rye at 5.5 and Keller as your backup at 4.5. So that's 11 million. Oh, I can't even do maths. 10 million spent on goalkeepers. I mean, it's not the worst in the world, to be fair. I like the look of it. Reinders is a very good pick, I think, at 5.5 million. Scored 10 goals in Serie A last season. Isak is one of the best forwards in the game. Tonali could be quite underrated with defensive contributions. Although I would consider Caicedo instead. I think Bruno Fernandes is a bit too expensive and United have poor fixtures at the moment, but all good options, all reasonable. I just go about it a little bit differently. I do like the Salah-Wirtz partnership though. With the lap, I'd probably go for Joao Pedro instead, or just a different 7 to 7.5 million forward. Are there any lessons learned from last season? Mine is don't take too many -4s. That's a good question. I mean, that's the plan, right? To live and learn, get better. I think with FPL, the main learning for me Yeah, I think it's the start of the season. That's something that's caught me off guard in the last two campaigns, where Gimmick 1 is good, but then Gimmick 2 to 8, for some reason, I just drop off massively. So, yeah, probably too much chopping and changing in the first few gimmicks and not giving my players enough time to breathe and to really perform and pay off the faith that I've shown in them. So, I think that period between gimmicks 2 to 8 is what I'll really need to lock in. And if I can get that right, I've got a good platform for the rest of the season. Thank you, Sidindra. Great stream, and happy FPL is back, Dylan. Good night, and catch you back for your stream in Gimmick 1. Yeah, that'll be in 3 weeks' time. Does seem like quite a while away, but time does fly when you're having fun. Mr. Iceman says, non-FPL question, who do you see winning the championship in F1? Yeah, I think Piastri as well. I think Norris will be second, Verstappen third, even though Red Bull have been terrible recently. Are Man City and Haaland worth it? Man City probably not in terms of the headaches you'll get in the midfield and defence, but Erling Haaland up front is always worth it in my opinion, even though he's really expensive at 14 million. Van der Ven, good shout, 4.5. You've also got a doggy as well, yeah. I just don't really trust Spurs, but I'd rather spend that money than 5 million on Romero or on Vicario. If Patterson gets a move, 4 million. No. Johnny, why? And yes, I know who the goalkeeper is, Patterson. He's not going to move. Surely not. I stopped myself. You can't catch me, mate. You can't catch me. Pains me to say City will be much improved, so Haaland, good shout. Well, yeah, last season was their worst by some distance under Pep Guardiola, but I don't think that's going to... I mean, look, Liverpool would be the favourites right now to win the league with their summer signings. I think Arsenal, if they get the striker and a few others, they'd be in contention. But City will still be much better. They will lose fewer games, concede fewer chances, and they won't have, like, what was it, 7 big chances conceded against Bournemouth and stuff like that. It ain't happening this time. Demo with the team name. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, there's a lot of slander names for Verts at the moment, which we won't go into. Gustavo says, still a lot of possible transfers ahead. Gyökeres, Man United forward, Liverpool forward, etc. Well, it looks like the Liverpool forward will be Ekitike. If Diaz leaves, we could see another winger being added to the ranks, but you are right. There's a lot that's still up in the air, which is why right now all we can do is rough drafts and stuff like that. And yeah, there will be a first draft podcast coming out very soon, but things will definitely take a turn in the next few hours, I think. I'm going to be doing a lot of research and tinkering at the moment. If I was in your mini league last season, do I need to join again? No. If you use the same account, no, you don't need to. Easy says, likely in the future you will take minus points to make extra transfers without using wildcard or free hit. But the thing is, though, I think this season we might see fewer hits compared to last season with the extra chips, and also with AFCON, we are getting additional transfers, up to 5 in game week 16. So irrespective of what you've been doing beforehand, you're going to get that extra boost with the transfers. So there is also one more question I want to cover, and I will be wrapping up, but let's see. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, we are approaching the end. Let's get to 100 likes. It has been greatly appreciated. Thank you to those that have been tuning in from the beginning. And a big up to the new members like Reza and Mr. Iceman, and also to Anish for the super chats. It is greatly appreciated. And let's answer a few last questions and then wrap things up. Yeah, Darwin likely to leave Liverpool. That also opens up the gap for another striker or forward other than Ekitike. Yeah, exactly that, Mishi. There's a lot of slander names for Florian Wirtz. Is that Strand Larsen now on penalties with Sarabia and Cunha no longer at Wolves? I believe so. Just going to double check that. I mean, if Hwang Hee-chan starts, could he take penalties? It's possible, but I think Strand Larsen will be the main taker, and if anything changes, I'll be letting you know during pre-season. So yeah, my best overall position in FPL last season, I don't think was that high actually. It was around 100k, to be honest with you. I'm new to FPL. Could you tell me if I can make changes halfway through match day 1 if the timing is different, like Club World Cup Fantasy? So yeah, it is different to Club World Cup Fantasy. You can keep making changes from now until the Game Week 1 deadline. So you have unlimited transfers, you can keep tinkering, but once the Game Week 1 deadline hits, you will not be able to make any transfers before any Game Week 1 fixture, for example, and you can't make substitutions, you can't change the captaincy. That is completely different. Here, you pick one captain, you also select your starting 11, and that's it. If any player misses out, so for example, your captain, then your vice captain will be awarded double the amount of points instead. And with your starting 11, any missing players or someone who doesn't play a single minute, they'll be subbed out automatically for the player first on your bench, as long as that still maintains an eligible formation. Demon says slightly changed it. That was quick. Raya, Mikalenko, Frimpong, Gay, Udogi, Caicedo, Wirtz, Salah, Reinders, Isak, Joao Pedro, Kelleher, Tonali, Konsa, and Bowen. I like the look of it, and I'm seeing a few Tonali teams now, which is quite interesting, and more defensive midfielders. In your case, you've got Reinders and Caicedo. Interesting stuff there. I like the look of it, and it also helps you have Salah, Isak, and a decent team overall. Some FPL managers don't like AFCON transfers since we have double chips and gives advantage for bad FPL planners. Yeah, I think from that perspective, I can share their sentiments there, but I also think, well, the bad thing about it as well is that it prevents people taking hits, or it kind of reduces that sort of need. But I did discuss some of the pros actually earlier in the key changes video, so I'd suggest you watch that and we can continue the conversation there actually. They say it's too much and the game's gone. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. It does seem a little bit too much. It is catering to the casuals as well. Now, FPL will want to keep the veterans on side and those that are really invested in fantasy games, but they also want to appeal to as many people as possible, and that's where AFCON transfers comes into play, and also the extra chips as well. I think maybe the AFCON transfer is a good idea, but not having 2 chips. So 2 bench boosts, 2 wild cards, triple captains, and free hits. Well, Reza, as mentioned before, defensive contributions is a new feature in Fantasy Premier League this season. So Van Dijk would have comfortably outscored Trent last season, for example, and I don't think Frimpong will play every single game. In fact, I think Bradley can get a few starts over him, and it's less likely on the left-hand side with Kerkez up against Robertson or Tsimikas, in my opinion, and Van Dijk will start every single game virtually. He's also got more goal threat, and he can mix it up with the defensive contributions. Yeah, Xavi Simons is linked to Chelsea and Arsenal. I think it's more likely he'll go Chelsea, to be honest, but that could be a good signing. Will he start every single game? I don't think so, but I think he could still make a meaningful impact there, even though Chelsea's track record isn't the greatest when it comes to that sort of thing. At least 20 to 30 AFCON players in FPL, not including Ghana. They didn't qualify for AFCON, that is true, but still a significant number, and that's why we're getting the extra transfers, although you could say it's a little bit far-fetched. In previous African Cup of Nations editions, we didn't get this sort of thing, and we just had to navigate it and plan. So I do understand where the criticism is coming from. But thank you, everyone. It has been a blast talking to you for the past 2 hours. And of course, I did a video earlier, which was half an hour itself. So a lot of talking and a lot of FPL discussions already underway. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also the notification bell so you're always up to date with my content. That not only includes FPL, but also UCL Fantasy, which will return very soon at the end of August, going into September. And that's where the season is fully underway, and I'll be making videos and live streams on a consistent basis. During the summer, I covered Club World Cup Fantasy. I did a preliminary draft for FPL only, a couple of days ago now, and today I released a video focusing on the key changes to FPL this season, from AFCON transfers to extra chips, also the changes to the bonus point system, defensive contributions, and much more. Positional modifications. Jared Bowen is now a forward, for example. All of that has been delved into. Kudus will be a safe pick. I'm not sure about safe, but at 6.5 million, it's fairly decent, and he's currently in my team. Double the usual chips is AIDS. Yeah, that's the one I probably am least in agreement with. I'm actually not too fussed about the AFCON transfers personally, but in terms of the extra chips, that's where I kind of agree with you. Having both of them at the same time, it does seem like it's catering to the casuals or, you know, the new players a lot, but that is the direction FPL are heading in. Thank you, Beardy, and thanks for the stream. See you later. Yes, I will. The next stream will likely be in 3 weeks' time, but if I am able to, there might be 1 or 2 kind of planning streams and stuff like that in early August, and there will definitely be some videos headed your way over the next couple of weeks. Take care, enjoy the football. Of course, now all we have is pre-season, but there's a lot to monitor and check up on, and my channel will cover everything you need to know, all the key stats, observations, and just everything to have you well prepared for Game Week 1 and beyond. Keep your eyes peeled for Use Your Fantasy too, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.